Chapter 360, Su Li blames herself. Qi Yao wakes up. Well, the old sect leader shook his head and looked at the young man in snow-white clothes, with a hint of heartache in his eyes. From the other party's reaction earlier, I knew that the young man was not heartless and ungrateful, and he still had deep feelings for his protector. If the protector really died here today, I don't know what he would do. On the Xianzong Tianjiao side, in the center of the crowd, Su Li also clenched his fists and looked at the red-robed envoy with cold eyes. If looks could kill, I don't know how many times the other person would have died. How dare he hurt Uncle Qi so badly? Qian had previously protected her in Chu City, and she still remembered it vividly. Such a good person should not die like this. But soon, when Su Li looked at the thin figure, a hint of worry flashed in the depths of her beautiful eyes. Previously, in the Immortal Treasure, she knew that after Nangong Chen exerted that terrifying power, his whole body would become exhausted and weak. If the energy consumption was too great, he would even have to sleep for a while before recovering. At this moment, the power of this sword is several times more terrifying than the previous sword in the Immortal Collection. This means that the opponent's consumption is definitely not as easy as it seems on the surface. The price is unimaginable. Under such circumstances, Nangong Chen had to remain calm and deal with the red-robed envoy for their sake. He even tried to find a way to heal Uncle Qi and the others, even though he was the one who was about to collapse. Thinking of this, Su Li pursed her red lips with some mist in her eyes. She felt a little guilty, blaming herself for why she couldn't help the other person every time. Why is my strength always so weak? I can only stay behind the opponent every time. Now that Qi Yao has fallen into a deep sleep after the last battle, she has no one to rely on. How can I be the girl of destiny? Su Li laughed at herself. Nangong Chen often told her that she was the daughter of destiny and was destined to become a strong person in the future. He also said that he would wait for her to protect him in the future. At that time, I believed it, but now it seems that she was really stupid. It was obvious that he should be the one destined to be the one. At this moment, a slightly lazy and domineering voice sounded from her mind. Why are you crying? Who bullied you? Qi Yao stretched lazily and said lightly, with a hint of coldness in her tone. Could it be that someone is bullying his little apprentice again? How ungrateful. She has now let it go. After spending a long time with Su Li, it becomes increasingly clear to her that the white-haired girl in front of her is a living person. She is not someone's reincarnation, nor is she herself in this life. She is Su Li, the girl who awakened the Ice Phoenix divine body, and also his only disciple. When Su Li heard this, her beautiful eyes lit up, and she quickly told the other party what had just happened. It's really a headache. I didn't expect the Blood God cult to come to my doorstep. After knowing the whole story, Qi Yao sighed, and a hint of sadness appeared on her charming and dignified face. Unfortunately, I've just woken up, so I probably can't help you kill that Saint King. However, as for how to unlock the soul-devouring banner, I do have some ideas I can give your husband. Qi Yao shook her head and continued, her beautiful eyes deep as she looked at the strange image of the chaos green lotus in the distance. Chapter 361, Qi Yao offers advice and doesn't mind exploded with the other party. Su Li was disappointed at first, but after hearing the second half of Qi Yao's words, she raised her beautiful eyes and said in a trembling voice, Really? Did I lie to you? Qi Yao said with a smile, the snow-white chest of her scarlet Cheongsam swaying, very tempting. Next, you must remember everything I say. This concerns whether those saints can survive. After joking for a while, Qi Yao looked serious and spoke word by word. Su Li nodded seriously. On the other side, Nangong Chen looked at the situation in front of him and felt a little overwhelmed. A hint of fatigue flashed across his clear eyes. I tried many ways to cut off the thorns, but this thing is extremely strange. It grows back as soon as I cut it. Even the holy medicine given to these three people to swallow had its medicinal power completely absorbed by the soul-devouring banner the moment it entered their mouths. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. Just as he was thinking, the arrogant voice rang out again. Hey, if you can't untie it, then stop struggling. I've already told you that even I can't untie it. Why don't you believe me? Wayne regained his human form and said with a smile. He could see that this guy had reached the end of his rope, and it was time to provoke him. The conditions I stated earlier are still valid. You can come and beg me. Perhaps I will show mercy and tell you how to delay the death of these three people. As soon as these words were spoken, Mou and others behind Wei Yin were suddenly terrified, fearing that the other party would get angry and stab them again. They simply didn't want to experience that feeling a second time. My dear father, please don't provoke the other party anymore. They all prayed secretly in their hearts. As soon as he finished speaking, the astonishing sword power erupted again, causing the sky and the earth to change color. Do you really want to die? Nangong Chen clasped the scabbard with his knuckles, and the sound of a dragon's roar whistled out along with the sword light. The moment he raised his eyes, the coldness in his eyes, like floating ice, solidified into substance, without a trace of emotion. The imperial energy on the human emperor's sword suddenly burst out, transforming into the shadow of a golden dragon with golden scales and 9 claws, looking down at all living beings from above. Wei Yin's face changed slightly, and he swallowed secretly. Could such a terrifying look really belong to a young boy? The cold, murderous aura seemed to be turning into substance, hovering in his neck, making him sweat profusely. Could it be that the other party still has the strength to attack again? Am I wrong? Wei Yin was silent and did not respond. The people behind him also panicked suddenly. Their legs became weak and their faces turned pale. Dad, please stop provoking the other party. If you're not afraid, then we are. Seeing this, Nangong Chen put the human emperor's sword, which he had pulled out an inch, back into the scabbard, took a deep breath, and a look of tyranny flashed across his cold face. There are still dozens of holy medicines in his Tianyuan Ling Bei. If the other party says a few more words, he doesn't mind exchanging blows with the other party. At this moment, everyone present was stunned by this scene. Those who didn't know would think that the words were from the immortal's hiding place after hearing these domineering words. Seeing Shui Yi's figure coming back, Qi Yin stopped talking and took back the words that were about to come out of his mouth. He had originally wanted to persuade the other party to leave him alone, but now he thought better of it. He was afraid that the other party would really rush to fight the red-robed envoy to the death. After all, it is not impossible for Nangong Chen to be in this state. Chapter 362. When Qi Yun and the other two were about to die, the blood god cult was in a stalemate. Nangong Chen frowned slightly when he saw that the injuries of the 3 people were getting worse. As time went by, the poison in Qi Yun and the other two had spread throughout their bodies. Their limbs were slightly purple, and even breathing became a problem. If this continues, it won't be long before the 3 of them die. The thorns on the soul-devouring banner became extremely thick after absorbing the blood and essence of the saint, and bloomed into strange flowers, with an evil light that was creepy. It can be said that at this moment, it is almost impossible to forcibly separate the soul-devouring banner, as the two have already merged into one. Just as Nangong Chen was thinking hard, a voice came into his mind. Nangong Chen, you could try to control the chaos-grown Azure Lotus. That Azure Lotus rises from the chaos and is one of the most powerful beings in the universe. It is extremely mysterious. The Azure Lotus is a healing artifact. Perhaps it can save those 3 saints. Soon, the beautiful voice disappeared. Nangong Chen's eyes lit up, and he glanced at Su Li, who was not far away, with excitement on his face. Su Li gave himself an idea that he could use the Chaos Seed Green Lotus to expel the soul-devouring banner. The Chaos Green Lotus is a pure thing, and it may really have a different effect on these evil spirits. Of course, the prerequisite is that he can control this vision. Maybe it really can work. He had had this vision for so long that he almost forgot how to control it. But now that she had pointed it out, the fog was immediately cleared up. Thinking of this, Nangong Chen did what he said, closed his eyes, and carefully felt the connection between himself and the Chaos Green Lotus. And on the other side, Wei Yin's expression gradually came back to normal, his hands clenched, his eyes cold. Unexpectedly, I was fooled by that kid again. He actually had some suspicions that the other party might have been exhausted and everything he had just done was just an empty city plan. Perhaps after the opponent had used that sword, his oil lamp had run out and he was just pretending to be calm. Thinking of this, a faint light flashed in his eyes and he looked at the other person carefully. When he saw the figure in snow-clothed clothes with his eyes closed and actually wanted to save the 3 saints, he smiled with some disdain. Oh, you're really stubborn. Well, I want to see if your desperate struggle can really untie the soul-devouring banner. Wei Yin sneered in a low voice, and then a fierce look flashed in his eyes. If you can't solve it, I'll have to test you to see if you really have the guts to fight me. He had already made up his mind that after the other party failed, he would take the initiative to attack. There is not much time left. If we continue, something might unexpectedly happen. Listen to my orders and be ready to take action at any time. Wei Yin spoke coldly to the people behind him. After hearing this, Mo Yu hesitated and did not dare to make a decision. The other members of the blood god cult beside him also avoided his gaze, not daring to meet his gaze, and did not speak. After all, they still remembered vividly the young man's shocking sword strike. If the other party could strike that sword again, they didn't want to become the dead soul under the sword. Wei Yin raised his eyebrows first, then glanced at them coldly. Whoever doesn't go, I will kill him. After saying this, a chilling, murderous intent flashed in his eyes, causing several members of the Blood God sect present to tremble. Chapter 363, The Only Way to Survive. The Chaos Green Lotus shows its power. Yes, hearing this, Mou and the others could only bow in fear. Boom! At this moment, the green lotus, standing in the chaos, suddenly changed and bloomed into a green divine cloud. Crystal roots evolved from it, shaking the sky and making a sound like a huge bell. This is not over yet. The sky is full of vibrant fluorescent light, illuminating the whole world. The pupils of the strong men present shrank slightly. Just by touching the emerald green, they felt an extremely vigorous vitality colliding in their bodies. Their injuries are recovering. In the void, Nangong Chen stepped on a ring, his body enveloped in divine light, his snow-white clothes swaying in the blazing divine light. He opened his eyes, a flash of cold lightning flashed, and he brought his sword down, saying coldly, "Suppress them." In an instant, the blue lotus's rosy glow illuminated the world, so dazzling that people could hardly open their eyes. They could only vaguely see that the blue lotus lowered its green branches and struck the four soul-devouring banners like lightning. Swish! Suddenly, under this attack, the soul-devouring banner seemed to have encountered great terror, and it let out a mournful cry and a humming sound. "There's hope." Nangong Chen's eyes lit up. The thorns that pierced Qi-Yun and the other three were finally retracted at this moment. At the same time, a steady stream of spiritual energy was being spitted out from the soul-devouring banner, feeding back to them. Immediately afterwards, the soul-devouring banner seemed to be frightened, and it released its demonic energy, trying to escape from the void. "You want to leave now? You just came here when you wanted to." Nangong Chen's eyes were cold, and his 5 fingers clenched suddenly. The next moment, the green branch blooming with divine mist was as fast as thunder. With a casual pull, it wiped out the 4 soul-devouring banners on the spot, turning them into a pool of black blood. Soon, Nangong Chen turned his gaze to Qi-Yun and the other 2. The moment Qi-Yun and the other 2 untied the soul-devouring banner, the injuries in their bodies began to recover continuously. The surging vitality madly healed their bodies, and after a while, their bodies were restored to their original state. As for the body on the side, Li Songhai's body was also healing, but because too much vitality had been lost, the recovery was extremely slow. Nangong Chen finally breathed a sigh of relief. Suli just sent him a message, saying that Li Songhai had somehow avoided fatal injuries and was still alive. If possible, he should try to save him. Unexpectedly, after trying this, there were signs of life in the body. Zhao Lei hadn't reacted yet, and was looking at his body in disbelief. The other 2 were like this too. Their eyes were dazed. "No way. The soul-devouring banner is gone?" That's the evil thing that the red cultist mentioned, something that even he himself couldn't dispel. Even their bodies were restored to their peak condition under the surging green light. If they were to recover on their own, who knows how much rare treasures would be consumed, and they would most likely suffer hidden injuries. After a few breaths, they slowly came back to their senses, looking at Nangong Chen with eyes full of gratitude. Being able to be reborn on this soul-devouring banner. I am afraid that no one else can solve it today, except this person. "Thank you for saving my life, young master." Qi-Yun was the first to kneel on one knee, his voice trembling. Becoming the other party's protector is the greatest luck in his life. Chen Song and Zhao Lei on the other side were also moved. Just as they were about to say something, they saw the young man waving his hand and pointing at Li Songhai lying motionless on the ground and whispered, "He's still alive." After saying this, the fatigue between the boy's eyebrows became more and more obvious. "What?" The 2 of them looked over, somewhat incredulous. Under Li Songhai's severely injured body, his old knuckles seemed to tremble slightly, and in the hollow place of his heart, the flesh and blood were gradually recovering. Chapter 364. Saving 3 people. Wei Yin's counterattack. And below, everyone looked at the 3 lively saints. Some of them were dumbfounded, their eyes widened, and they couldn't speak clearly. "No way, it can be saved already?" Soon, the monks on the streets all expressed their admiration for Nangong Chen's incredible ability to rescue a dying person. Is this person with double pupils really human? Not only is his martial arts prowess incredible, he even has the potential to be a doctor. And what on earth is that blue lotus? Just by looking at it, I can sense an astonishing pressure from such a distance. According to those experts, it seems to be a strange phenomenon called the Chaos Seed Blue Lotus. Only those with extraordinary talent and the potential to become immortals can possess it. I see. So that being said, you're taking things a bit too far. Today, the one with double pupils turned the tide and saved us from disaster. This will definitely go down in the history of Chu City. Some people thought of what Wei Yin had said before and started laughing. Have you forgotten that before this, that person said that the soul-devouring banner was impossible to remove? I didn't expect that the person with double pupils would slap him in the face. How cool. If it's impossible to save me, I'll just destroy your broken banner, until nothing remains. Thinking of his confident look just now, I can't help myself. Haha. At this moment, in Zuatian Pavilion, after Zhu Ying saw that her ancestor had really come back to life, she blinked her beautiful eyes and stared at the figure in white, with a strange brilliance blooming in her eyes. So amazing! She spoke slowly, her tone full of shock and her eyes filled with gratitude. Since she was able to rescue the ancestor, from now on, the other party would also be her benefactor. On the other side, in the restaurant, seeing this scene, Lan Linchuan immediately spat out the hot tea he had just drunk and accidentally sprayed it onto the tables next to him. He hadn't thought that this guy could be revived. What kind of amazing tricks did that young man have? Qing Fan on the side frowned and looked at him, then calmly wiped the water droplets on his clothes. Fortunately, he was in a good mood after seeing the young master rescue several people. Otherwise, he would have to teach this rude barbarian a lesson. Qingyu, who was sitting next to him, had no idea what was going on. Her beautiful eyes stared blankly at the sky, as if there was something attracting her there. Lan Linchuan also quickly waved his hands and apologized. "Excuse me, little brother. How about I compensate you with a piece of clothing?" Ever since he met a genius like Nangong Chen, he no longer dared to look down on the people of the Central Plains, fearing that another god king who could fight against a quasi-saint would appear. Of course, he was too excited just now and accidentally sprayed on the other person, which was indeed his fault. Nangong Chen also gave him a reproachful look. "Dad, how could you be so careless as to wet someone's clothes?" Lan Zhao lowered his head and remained silent. He was thinking if Nangong Chen had such a method, could he save her? I'm so sorry." Hearing his daughter blaming him, Lan Linchuan's face became more and more embarrassed. "Forget it, just be more careful next time." Qing Fan didn't make things difficult for him. After wringing out his clothes, he sighed. Of course, of course." Lan Linchuan nodded, a smile on his face, and then changed the subject and asked in a low voice, "Little brother, for what you two just said, it seems like you know the person in heaven." As he spoke, his eyes were fixed on the snow-clad figure in the sky. The reason why he was polite was because he heard the two of them keep calling the terrifying monster Young Master, as if they knew that existence. "Since I suspect I know him, I need to investigate further to see if I can learn more about this evildoer." After hearing this, Qingyu frowned and looked at him. How could this person be so powerful that he could eavesdrop on their conversation? She was just about to grab Qing Fan, who was standing beside her, but who would have thought that Qing Fan's figure had already disappeared from her sight? She was stunned, turned her head, and the corner of her mouth twitched. Qing Fan had already been talking at the next table with a smile on his face, and the other four people were listening very attentively. In the void, the geniuses who returned from Xinzong were all excited. Brother Nangong is truly like a god. He saved someone who was seriously injured. Chao Li waved his fist vigorously, his eyes full of excitement. Yes, thanks to him. If Brother Nangong wasn't here today, we would have been reunited in the underworld. Wang Tung also nodded slightly, his eyes full of admiration. The Holy Lord is finally safe. Wu Jian also wiped away his tears and said in a trembling voice, looking at the snow-clad figure in the distance. Just as these geniuses were excited, the two brothers Li Qixin and Li Muxiu in the crowd revealed endless loneliness in their eyes. They clenched their fists tightly, hating themselves for not being strong enough. If they were strong enough, the ancestor would not have died for them. Today is a great revenge. Li Qixin, will definitely chop off his head in the future. Li Qixin looked at Wei Yin and said with gritted teeth, his eyes had never been so cold. Kill his ancestor. If he was not strong enough today and had a younger brother to take care of, he would have bitten off a piece of flesh from the red-robed envoy, even if he was defeated by the opponent. Beside it, Li Muxiu remained silent, staring at the figures on the green lotus with a dazed look in his eyes. After a long time, he seemed to see something and was speechless for a moment. "Grandfather," he seemed to move his fingers. "Qiao, you really didn't lie to me." Seeing the three dying people returning to their peak in just a few breaths, Su Li's beautiful eyes were filled with shock. Is there really such a thing in this world that can pull people back from the gates of hell? Qiao, who was standing aside, remained silent, her eyes fixed on him. She only knew about the rumor, but when she personally witnessed this miraculous scene, she was also quite shocked. How could this emperor possibly lie to you? The other side, alive, Elder Xiong spoke in a trembling voice, looking at the figures under the magnificent green lotus. The other quasi-saints also looked incredulous. This horrifying vision can actually revive the dead. They all saw with their own eyes how badly Zhao lay and the others were injured. Moreover, he was also bound to the soul-devouring banner. If any famous doctor in the Xintian realm came to save him, the chances of him being saved would be slim. And in this fatal situation, the young man who had previously suppressed the villains with a sword once again created a miracle. If the person with double pupils could have arrived earlier, the Li family's ancestor might not have perished. The old sect leader seemed to have thought of something, and a trace of sadness flashed across his old eyes. He and Li Songhai are contemporaries and old friends who have known each other for a long time. Now that he sees the other party leaving in such a way, he feels a little uncomfortable. After hearing this, the others fell silent. Elder Xiong quickly glanced at the sky and said in a deep voice, "Now that the three saints have awakened, and we still have some fighting strength left, shouldn't we be able to evenly match the Blood God sect and easily attack or defend? What's more, the Blood God cult just lost so many powerful people." After he finished speaking, the old sect leaders' eyes lit up and their faces looked a little excited. It seems that there is some truth to this. And soon, a pale voice sounded. "Impossible. Absolutely impossible. As long as the other side's red-robed envoy is not dead, we still have no hope." Chu Shan has stared at the red-robed figure with despair, feeling powerless. You don't know how terrifying that Saint King is. He alone can turn the entire battle situation upside down. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, a devastating demonic light burst out from the sky. Between heaven and earth, a gigantic corpse suddenly descended. Its body was 1,000 feet tall and soared into the sky. Its entire body was wrapped in pitch-black demonic energy, and its every move exuded astonishing pressure. "You little bastard, how dare you cheat me?" The skull of the corpse, with a pair of green eyes, was filled with murderous intent. His gaze was fixed firmly on Nangong Chen's figure. Wayne was furious. He had never expected that the young man would dare to bully him and tease him right under his nose. If he had not just discovered that the other party's face was pale and even had difficulty standing up after saving the three saints, he would probably have been fooled by the other party. Soon, the white bone body that shocked the void was filled with demonic energy, and white claws like mountains suddenly blasted out. In an instant, the sky and the earth changed color, and a terrifying aura swept across the four directions. The entire Chu city was shrouded in the white bones, blocking out the sky and the sun, and it was pitch black. The monks present trembled under this power and did not dare to even think of resisting. They couldn't imagine that there was someone in the world who could burst out with such power. Even the quasi-saints looked helpless after seeing it. This was simply too powerful enough to make them despair. And on the other side, Qi Yun and his companions didn't have time to say any words of thanks. The three of them protected Nangong Chen behind them and burst out with all their strength. "Protect the young master." Qi Yun gritted his teeth and broke out in a cold sweat. He knew very well that once that power descended, everyone present would die. But he also knew that with their strength, they could not stop this devil's claws. Zhao Lei's eyes flashed with cold lightning, and he pinched the sword gesture with his hands. Chaos surged in his palms, and 4 green swords burst out, turning into a sword formation, circling in the void, blocking everyone. Sword formation to protect the body. Qingguang's sword. A streak of scarlet came out of Chun Song's mouth, and the broken compass in his hand reassembled and shone with light. With a wave of his sleeves, the stars in the sky descended with divine power and transformed into the Big Dipper. The two formations overlapped, unleashing a mighty power in the void. "Take that kid and go first." Qin Song looked at Qi Yun with a serious look in his eyes. Zhao Lei also nodded slightly. That kid saved their lives, so they couldn't just watch him get killed. Qi Yun's expression changed slightly. He bowed and quickly came to Nangong Chen's side, helped him up, and said in a deep voice, "Young master, let's go first. They are here to delay us, and we cannot waste time." Nangong Chen shook his head, his brows showing some helplessness, and sighed softly, "I can't leave." Qi Yun looked over, and his pupil shrank. "I saw that the previous Qin Gang sword formation and Beidou star formation were completely shattered under the devil's power, and were as fragile as paper. The remaining power was still there, and the breath of death had already enveloped their heads." "Ridiculous. You still want to leave? All of you die for me. Even if the Jade Emperor came today, you will still die." Wei Yin sneered, with terrifying murderous intent in his eyes. As soon as he finished speaking, the overwhelming demonic power made the two leaders, Zhao Lei and Qin Song, fly backwards and spit out blood. And, seeing this, Wei Yin's eyes were filled with disdain, and a fierce look flashed behind him. He rushed towards the remaining 2 people, and his demonic aura enveloped the sky. Today, he will strangle Nangong Chen in the cradle. This boy has already seriously affected the future of the Blood God cult. If he is not eradicated, he will become a future trouble. Qi Yun hurriedly protected Nangong Chen. The string of the broken holy bow in his hand had already been pulled, and his eyes were determined. He knew that he could not stop the opponent's attack, but even if he died, he would die before the young master. Nangong Chen sat cross-legged in the void, constantly swallowing the holy medicine. His body was like a bottomless pit, constantly absorbing the spiritual energy around him. Just a little bit more. He muttered to himself. If someone observed Nangong Chen carefully, they would definitely find that he had swallowed nearly 20 holy medicines. What a terrifying concept this is. If it were any other cultivator, he would have exploded and died long ago. The power of the medicine was enough to starve the saint to death. But Nangong Chen, as if nothing had happened, continued to devour madly. Seeing that the devil's claws were about to fall, Nangong Chen suddenly opened his eyes. His pupils shone brightly, and his eyes covered with runes were firmly fixed on Wei Yin's figure. In an instant, the brilliant sword light surged out and slashed straight towards the huge skeleton. Wei Yin's face changed slightly, and he stopped immediately, raising his elbow to block it. Boom! The sword light fell on the bones, like the collision of huge stars, and a deafening sound erupted. The people below looked at this scene with stunned eyes. No one expected that at this critical moment, the man with double pupils could still slash out such a sword. Boy, you're good. When the white smoke dissipated, a low roar was heard from it, and the heaven and earth were buzzing, making everyone present shudder. A bloody bony hand stretched out from the evil aura, and then a giant skeleton with a broken right arm appeared, with brutal eyes, and rushed towards Nangong Chen. His aura continued to surge, becoming much stronger than before. The terrifying pressure spread out like a tide, causing the grass and trees on all sides to tremble and the city to shake. In the void, a grim white bone, right arm slowly fell, like a meteorite, landing in Chu City. The pupils of everyone in Chu City shrank slightly. They were happy at first, but then looked panicked. No one expected that the man with double pupils could cut off the right arm of the invincible skeleton giant with one sword at this critical moment. However, what is puzzling is that even after the opponent lost an arm, he still does not seem to be weak and is even more terrifying than before. Can those with double pupils cope with it? Chapter 365, Who Dares to Kill the Crown Prince of My Divine Dynasty? I will torture you until your body and soul are shattered. Wei Yin roared. His eyes were crazy. His whole body seemed to be burning in flames, and he punched out with the remaining red. He didn't expect that this kid could see through his weakness and attack his right shoulder blade. He had been seriously injured at that spot during a battle by a cultivator of the same level, and it was almost broken. And now, after such a long time, when he was almost fully recovered, he was severely injured by the sword of this tiny insect. This caused all his previous efforts to go to waste, and he lost everything. How could he not be angry and want to tear the other party into pieces? Dead. Looking at the terrifying punch coming, Qi Yun said in a trembling voice, his face pale. Zhao Lei and Chun Song, who were standing nearby, also had despair in their eyes. Who would have thought that even with a broken right arm, the opponent could still burst out with such strength? Is this the Saint King? For the first time, they felt confused by such a powerful enemy and could not think of any way to deal with it. Nangong Chen shook his head and slowly put the human emperor sword back into its scabbard. The light in his pupils became dimmer. His body had reached its limit. He first swallowed the 8 immortal medicines, and then strengthened his origin to extend the lives of the 4 saints and force the vision to appear. Now he has swallowed 23 holy medicines and forced his double pupils to function to the extreme. Only when he found a flaw in the opponent could he cut off the opponent's right arm with a sword. Being above the saint was still too strenuous for him. Just one weakness had exhausted all his pupil power. This was a move he could only use after he absorbed the memory of the girl with double pupils. But now, his pupils are no longer functioning and his body has reached its limit. If he continues to swallow the holy medicine, he will definitely explode and die. It is no exaggeration to say that he is at the end of his rope. I originally thought I could buy some time, but I didn't expect that this strike of the sword would not only fail to make the red-robed envoy retreat, but instead arouse a certain physical condition of the other party, making him even stronger than before. Sure enough, the gap between him and this saint is still too big. There was a hint of helplessness in Nangong Chen's brow, and then his eyes looked towards the sky, as if he was expecting some figure to appear. He just didn't believe that after he had done so much, the ghost-faced woman would not care about him. He had always been able to feel that gaze watching him, even when he was in the immortal treasure, but strangely, that gaze seemed to have disappeared recently. I don't know if it was his illusion. Seeing that the ghost-faced figure had not yet appeared in the void, Nangong Chen sighed and calmly tore off his white clothes, revealing the majestic robe of the sect leader underneath. He raised his eyes and looked at Wei Yin, who was charging towards him, with a smile on his face. Congratulations, you successfully entered the second stage of the boss. Since I can't beat him, I can only cheat. He did not forget that he had obtained this supreme treasure in the immortal treasury, the robe of the leader of the Xianxian sect. No one below the true immortal could hurt him. What's more, this is the little Saint King in front of him. If he is hurt even a little today, he will be considered the loser. At this moment, Nangong Chen was wearing an Inyang fairy robe. His eyebrows were mysterious, his black hair was flying, his handsome face seemed to have added a layer of majesty, and his eyes were shining with cold electricity, making people dare not look directly at him. This sudden change left everyone present dumbfounded. What is this? Why do I suddenly feel that he has become more majestic? I feel. Does he look like your dad? Yes, that's right. That's the feeling. No, damn it. He's more like your dad. In the crowd, the man wearing a pighead mask and another big man were arguing fiercely, but their eyes were fixed on the figure of the young man in the sky, with a hint of horror. They couldn't explain the feeling, but they all felt an inexplicable sense of submission in their hearts, as if the figure in the sky was an immortal worshipped by all living beings. And in the air, Wayne was also a little confused by this sudden change. He paused, looked him up and down with his glowing green eyes, and some doubts appeared on his face. No, why does he feel like a different person just by changing his clothes? Could that piece of clothing be some kind of treasure? It doesn't look like it. He has never seen anyone turn a robe into a treasure. Could it be that this kid is trying to cheat me again? Thinking of this, he clenched his fingers, his eyes cold. What the hell is this second stage? Look at my fist. Does it look like your death? As soon as he finished speaking, Wei Yin threw a punch, and a mighty demonic energy roared out. Zhulong world-destroying fist. In the void, demonic energy surged and gathered into a pitch-black candle dragon. The dragon's eyes, as big as bells, were filled with evil fire. It roared and rushed towards Nangong Chen with a ferocious face. The powerful aura instantly made many of the onlookers fly backwards with pale faces. This time, the Zhulong that soared into the sky locked its murderous intent on Nangong Chen, vowing to wipe him out on the spot. Qi Yun and others were a little panicked, but the speed was too fast, and they had no time to intercept it. They could only watch the evil dragon body rush towards them. Their faces turned pale. Not good. Nangong Chen, who was the target of the candle dragon's attack, had a calm expression at this moment. His eyes were dim, and his handsome face, like an immortal, did not show any fluctuations. Such calmness in the face of danger caused everyone present to marvel at him. Just as the candle dragon was about to fall, a domineering cold shout suddenly rang out, like thunder from the ground, resounding throughout the world. Who dares to kill my divine dynasty crown prince? Who dares to kill my grandson? The next moment, the evil candle dragon that was about to rush towards Nangong Chen was directly destroyed on the spot by a sword light that shot into the sky, leaving no trace of ash. Not far away, an old and arrogant figure tore through the void and appeared in everyone's sight. The man was hanging in the air barefoot, his white hair whistling like a snow dragon. An ink knife hung on his waist, his weathered eyes were full of frost, and the corners of his lips trembled, which was enough to show his anger at the moment. He just stood there, his sword intent entwined, and soared into the sky, causing all the blades present to clang. The pupils of everyone present suddenly shrank. They could see that this person must be a terrifying sword master. What is even more terrifying is what this strong man just said. The crown prince of the divine dynasty? Grandson? He couldn't be talking about someone with double pupils. Soon, before anyone could react, 8 armored figures appeared behind the old man with the black knife. They were majestic and their eyes were sharp. They said respectfully to Nangong Chen in unison, "I have met the prince." In an instant, the sound was like a huge bell, spreading out towards the surroundings like a tidal wave, and the void within a radius of 100 miles trembled. The 8 golden-armored warriors in the lead had eyes like cold lightning and bloody energy. Just a wisp of their aura leaked out, and it shocked the other warriors present. These 8 people are actually all saints. The most shocked people were Zhao Lei and Chun Song, who were close to them. Their minds were blank, and they had no idea where this powerful man came from. This is... Zhao Lei lost his voice and looked at Qi Yun and the others in confusion. Soon he was cleared up. As Qi Yun was excited, Nangong Chen stepped forward with a look of cherishment on his face. He bowed and said, "Greetings, Grandpa, and all the generals. It's a pity that I didn't get to try out the power of the sect leader's robe." If the red-robed envoy saw that even the corner of his clothes was not torn after his full-strength attack, what a wonderful scene it would be. Thinking of this, Nangong Chen raised the corner of his mouth slightly, shook his head, and then turned his gaze to the people in front of him. He didn't expect that after the immortal hiding was over, his grandfather would come to greet him in person. What he didn't expect was that even the 8 great generals had come. If he was not mistaken, the 8 great generals' cultivation had probably already reached the level of saints. And that knife, just now. Nangong Chen's heart was a little moved, and his eyes flickered. He had never seen such a fast and sharp knife before. so fast that it could tear through time. Even in his double pupils, he could only see a fleeting shadow. Is it possible that my cheap grandfather is so powerful? When he saw the red robe sect attack just now, it didn't seem to be so strenuous. It seems that the current limit of his double pupils is to be able to see clearly the movements of the saints, and it will be more difficult to do more than that. Of course, this is only the case when facing beings with cultivation far above his. If it is a cultivator of the same realm, or one with lower cultivation than his, the double pupils are simply a dimensionality reduction attack for him. In his eyes, all the speed of the opponent will be slowed down several times like a snail. After a brief thought, Nangong Chen looked at the situation on the battlefield and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, support came from the Divine Dynasty. Otherwise, the sect leader robe he was wearing could only protect him. Qian also knelt on one knee, his eyes blazing, and said respectfully, "Greetings, old mansion master." No need to be so polite. Nangong nodded slightly, waved his sleeves, and a force lifted Qian up. Then he looked at Nangong Chen, stretched out one hand, grabbed his shoulder, and after feeling it for a while, a trace of horror flashed in his eyes. What happened to this spiritual energy? It was completely consumed. He couldn't even feel a trace of spiritual power flowing, and his body was still constantly absorbing spiritual energy. After seeing the paleness on Nangong Chen's face, Nangong Yu seemed to understand something. His eyes showed a look of heartache, and he said softly, "It's really hard for you." He knew that the other side had a Saint King, and it was obviously impossible for these people to hold on until now. It must be that his grandson used the treasure, otherwise this place would have turned into nothingness long ago. He was somewhat relieved that he arrived in time. He had just felt it and realized that Nangong Chen's body had reached its limit. If he continued to fight, his life would be in danger. After hearing this, the tense feeling deep in Nangong Chen's heart finally loosened a little. He shook his head and was about to say something, but found that he couldn't say anything. The corners of his lips twitched for a while. Then he closed his eyes and fell asleep. Seeing this scene, everyone present was shocked and stared at the figure in the snow-covered clothes. The one with double pupils. What happened to him? Nothing can happen to him. If it weren't for him, none of us would be alive today. Yes, we must keep him safe. On the other side, Su Li's pupils suddenly shrank, and he turned into a stream of light and rushed over quickly. Wang Teng and others also looked at the surrounded figure in snow clothes with concern. Qian was quick to support Nangong Chen and looked at Nangong Yu with a nervous expression. "Old palace master. What happened to the young master?" Nangong Yu was not in much better condition either. His face was solemn. He stepped forward to feel Nangong Chen's pulse again. After a while, his furrowed brows finally relaxed. "Nothing, I just fell asleep due to exhaustion." As soon as these words were spoken, Zhao Lei and the other person present immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, nothing happened. If something happened, they would be guilty of a serious crime. Then, Nangong Yu locked his eyes on the blood god cult members in the distance. His eyes were cold and seemed to be filled with endless murderous intent. "Keep an eye on my grandson. If he gets even a hair of his head hurt, bring him to me with your head. Today, I'm going on a killing spree." He left a word and came out with his 8 generals. "Yes," Qian responded quickly, and the 2 people around him nodded like chicks pecking at rice. Seeing them leave, Zhao Lei quickly asked curiously, "Fellow Taoist, what are your origins? Why are there so many powerful people coming?" He could see that Nangong Yu was most likely a Saint King, no worse than the red-robed envoy, and even gave him a more terrifying feeling. "We come from the abyss." Qian shook his head and responded, "Abyss?" After he finished speaking, Zhao Lei and Qin Song looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Is this the recently rising power in eastern Shenzhou, Tianyuan Divine Dynasty? Some people even speculated that the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty came from a hidden family. Now it seems that it is true, and there is a high probability that it is true. Soon, an ice blue figure hurried over. Seeing this, Qian also hurriedly saluted, young master's wife. Although he knew that Nangong Chen was now named the crown prince, he was still not used to changing his words. Zhao Lei and the others were stunned when they heard this. They had never expected that the Ice Phoenix goddess had such an identity that even a saint would bow to her respectfully. Su Li nodded slightly, then quickly turned her gaze to Nangong Chen and asked, "What's wrong with him?" "The young master is fine. According to the old palace master, he was just too tired and fell asleep." Qi Yin smiled, as if he expected the other party to ask this question. Su Li looked at Qi Yao, who also nodded and breathed a sigh of relief. There was some tension on her beautiful face, and she said softly, "Uncle Qi, could you please let me take care of Nangong Chen? Previously in the Immortal Treasure, he fainted just like today, and I was the one who took care of him." Chapter 366. The arrival of the Tianyuan strongman. The situation is reversed. After hearing this, Qian didn't think much about it. He nodded slightly and gently put Nangong Chen into Su Li's arms. Then I'll have to trouble the young mistress. Qian bowed and smiled, his eyes showing relief. When it comes to taking care of people, he considers himself a rough man. It's not that he can't do it, but he is afraid that he won't take good care of them. Thank you. Su Li looked at him gratefully, then thought for a moment, looked at the handsome, pale face in her arms, and said firmly, "Don't worry, I will protect him." And in a corner where no one was paying attention, the body lying in a pool of blood was gradually recovering its vitality. In the distant battlefield, the 8 Tianyuan warriors surrounded the people from the blood god sect tightly, looking at them with cold eyes. The armor shimmering with cold light brought great pressure to people. Soon, the generals made way for them, and the old man holding the ink knife slowly walked out from among them. His white hair danced wildly, and a terrifying sword intent emanated from his every move. Wei Yin felt the commotion and couldn't help but have his eyelids twitching. He stared at the old man with the black knife with a serious expression. Obviously, this is a Saint King that does not belong to him, and from the other party's words and actions just now, it can be seen that this person has a close relationship with that boy. This is going to be difficult. Behind him, Imoyu and others were no longer as arrogant as they were at the beginning. Their faces were pale, and they stared at them with extremely fearful eyes. If you look closely, you can find that the legs of the 3 quasi-saints are shaking like sieves. At this moment, offense and defense are truly changing. In Chu City, everyone was watching this scene with shocked expressions. They were mistaken. 8 saints, and even one who could rival the red-robed emissary. Is this the true meaning behind those with double pupils? For a moment, everything was silent. Not only were the civilian monks speechless, but even the many powerful people from various sects in the void were silent, with horror in their eyes. Someone had previously said that the person with double pupils came from a small force. Now thinking about it, they couldn't wait to kick that person twice. Damn, are you and I a small force? Any one of these saints he sends out is enough to shock the entire Xintian territory and make him a giant in the state. The key point is that the other party actually has 8 saints. Even the existence above the saint in the legend is actually the grandfather of the man with double pupils. No one told them that the person with double pupils had such a terrifying backside. Is this the legendary Tianyuan Divine Dynasty? The old sect leader lost his voice. When they heard the elders of Tianji Pavilion talk about this force that day, they didn't take it seriously. They didn't expect to be shocked when they saw it today. It seems we are saved today. Wang Qi also spoke, his eyes fixed on the void, and sighed. He didn't dare to blink, for fear of missing any exciting scene. He felt more and more fortunate in his heart that he did not make an enemy with the person with double pupils. Otherwise, with the situation today, he would not know how he died. Elder Xiong on the other side didn't say a word, but he was already covered in cold sweat. Scary. It's really scary. The other day, when he went to East Shenzhou to meet with those with double pupils, he noticed something was wrong with the place. Many eyes were observing them, but he didn't take it seriously, thinking it was just a few quasi-saints. But who would have thought that there were so many saints there? I dare not think about it. If he had any ill intention toward the person with double pupils that day, I am afraid his life would be at stake. The pavilion master of Tianbao Pavilion also widened his eyes at this moment, looking at those powerful people in the void. Are these the forces behind those with double pupils? He couldn't help but lose his voice, his scalp tingling. He has been in Xintian territory for so many years and has visited every force, but this is the first time he has seen so many saints together. After a long time, he calmed down and sighed. Sure enough, the long-dormant Eastern Dragon once again soared into the sky, proving to the world who is the true overlord of the Xintian territory. As soon as these words were spoken, many powerful people present sighed, and all of them agreed with their words. Who would have thought that there was such a terrifying force in East Shenzhou? The elder of the Jiang family had secretly broken into a cold sweat, feeling lucky that Jiang Che was a good person and did not provoke the other party again. Otherwise, the entire Jiang family would have been doomed. Chu Shanha on the other side looked at the scene with a complicated expression. To be honest, even he was shocked by the number of saints, not to mention the aura of a Saint King. So, is this the reason why this boy was not afraid of the threat from Prince Aolong that day? It would be fine if Prince Aolong's master was a Saint King, but that is a venerable. He had seen a tiny part of the upper realm, where even a powerful being like the Saint King had to submit and kowtow to the venerable. It was easy to imagine that the other party was far more powerful than he had imagined. An existence like that is not something a Saint King can deal with. Even though it is easy for the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty to destroy the Chu family now, he still doesn't believe that they will be able to deal with that venerable in the lower world in a few months. The wrath of the Venerable is enough to burn through the entire Xiantian realm. Chu Shanhe shook his head, his eyes gradually becoming firm. He firmly believed that he was not wrong. When the time comes, time will tell everything. Inside Chu City, after a brief shock, the monks in the streets and alleys gradually recovered. This person with double pupils is actually a prince. Did you hear clearly? What they were talking about just now was the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. Hey, Tianyuan Divine Dynasty, we have never heard of it. You've probably never heard of it. Forces of this magnitude used to be hidden and low-key. Now that the great era is approaching, they're coming out to compete. Now that you mention it, I remember that my friend from East Shenzhou told me a while ago that something big had happened in East Shenzhou. They said a dynasty called Tianyuan had destroyed many major forces in East Shenzhou in a few days and became the new overlord of East Shenzhou. This domineering and decisive style, appearing out of nowhere, is rather like those hidden families. Could it be that those people with double pupils are from hidden families? It's possible. After all, a genius like the one with double pupils could definitely not be cultivated by ordinary forces. If he really came from a hidden family, then everything would make sense. No way. The disciples of that hidden family have always been extremely arrogant and looked down on us cultivators from the three states. But someone with double pupils doesn't seem like that. Come on, I won't comment without knowing the full story. Let's not speculate on this. Anyway, from today onwards, the names of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty and those with double pupils will surely resound throughout the Xiantian realm. That's right. No matter what, the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty will definitely become the overlord of Xiantian territory and will change the pattern of Xiantian territory that has remained unchanged for 10,000 years. The monks from all corners of the world present were discussing the matter, and the more they speculated, the more they could see the shock in each other's eyes. Some independent cultivators from other places were also greatly shocked, shouting that the trip was worthwhile for them to see such a wonderful scene. Of course, after today, even if they are far away, they will spread what happened today throughout the three states. Soon, someone in the crowd thought of the Sun God Palace who had offended those with double pupils before and sneered. Oh right, the Sun God Palace attacked the double pupil man several times before and even nearly killed Goddess Su. I want to see how they react after they find out about the power behind the double pupil man. I've long been displeased with the Sun God Palace. They've bullied independent cultivators like me and looked down on us. They claim to be righteous, but they're actually doing evil things. I hope those with double pupils can eradicate this cancer from the Xiantian realm. Don't tell me, if those 8 saints had descended upon the Sun Palace together today, I'm afraid not even a trace of it would be left. How dare a force as insignificant as a sesame seed act so presumptuously in front of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty? Others are too powerful to bother with him, but he's just being too aggressive. Don't worry, if the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty continues to act tyrannically, it won't be long before the Sun God Palace becomes history. As soon as these words were spoken, the people from the Sun God Palace in mid-air suddenly turned pale and broke out in cold sweat. They are all the most elite disciples in the palace of the Sun God. They haven't lived enough and can't die like this. Immediately, some of the disciples began to think about leaving the sect. Upon seeing this, the leading elder of the temple hurried to calm them down. It's okay. What they said is bullshit. They are just trying to scare you. Our Sun Temple has a long heritage and an amazing foundation. How can we destroy it so easily? In secret, the elder frantically pressed the token in his hand, trying to contact Fun Dao to calm the situation. He knew that he could not do anything alone. However, there was no response from the token for a long time, which made the elder's heart beat fast. He wondered if the palace master would abandon them and fly away. Soon, as the situation escalated, many disciples of the Sun God Palace could no longer bear the pressure and immediately tore off their robes and left. Some even threw them on the ground, stepped on them, and cursed. I'm going to your fucking Sun Palace. I joined because I believed your lies. Now that brainless palace master has caused a mess, he wants us to be buried with him. Dream on. I'll leave first as a sign of respect. Anyone who wants to stay in this broken temple can do so. Yeah, after leaving the Sun Palace, I don't believe that anyone would refuse to accept us given our qualifications. That's right. Even if we withdraw from the sect, we are still much better than these rotten fish and shrimps. How many sects are begging us to join? Seeing the arrogant look of the disciples of the Sun God Palace, everyone present was furious and wanted to give them a few punches. Will I die if I don't pretend? On the other side, the elder of the Sun God Palace was also very anxious after seeing this. He wanted to stop them, but he didn't know what to say. At the same time, the token in his hand that was used to call Fun Dao did not light up. The token was carried by the other party, so how could he not sense it? With the other party's temperament, it was impossible for him to drop it. There was only one possibility, that the other party might have already escaped. Thinking of this, the elder's face changed, and he tore off his robe and threw it heavily on the ground. I won't stay here any longer. This guy's worse than pigs and dogs. He's really heartless and ruthless. Anyone who wants to go to this lousy place can go. After saying this, he turned into a stream of light and disappeared on the spot under the gaze of all the disciples. The remaining disciples of the Sun God Palace were left looking at each other, not knowing what to say. Even the elders have run away. Is there any need for them to stay here? In the void, the powerful men from various sects watched this scene, their eyes flashing and their thoughts varied. Afterwards, they quietly sent a message to their servants, asking them to remember the appearances of these disciples of the Sun God Palace, and ordered them that anyone with these faces coming to their mountain gate for assessment in the future would not be accepted. They're all old foxes in the Taoist sect, and they know very well what to do and what not to do. In the sky, after a brief silence, Wei Yin finally spoke, a smile forming on his old face. Fellow Taoist, this is all a misunderstanding. Let me explain. When these words were spoken, Nangong Chen laughed. He was so angry that he laughed. He had never thought that someone could be so shameless. He immediately waved his hand to interrupt the other party's intention to continue speaking, waved his hand, and sneered. Misunderstanding? What a misunderstanding. If it's a misunderstanding, then leave your life to me and kill me. As soon as he finished speaking, the 8 generals attacked together, and terrifying killing techniques burst out in the sky. Some unleashed the burning sky flame palm, and the moment it landed, a flaming phoenix soared into the sky, burning everything in its path. Others swung their swords, transforming into a surging yellow springs of water that covered the sky, rotting everything in its path. These are all unique skills passed down from generation to generation by Tianyuan, and now they are all mastered by their 8 generals, each forming their own school. Wei Yin's pupil shrank. He hadn't expected the other party to leave him no room for maneuver. He could only bite the bullet and give the order. Stop it, and fight your way out. After saying that, he led the charge, summoning a red and white bone body, his face showing a ferocious expression, monstrous demonic energy rolling, and countless bone spurs flying out from his back, trying to turn into a bone shield to block the overwhelming attack. He knew clearly that their remaining 2 saints and 3 quasi-saints alone could not withstand these means. If he did not stop them, there would probably be heavy casualties. This was definitely not a wise choice for him. The next moment, a flash of sword light appeared, as bright as a silver moon, illuminating the sky, and slashing straight towards Wei Yin. Boom! The blade landed on the bone shield, making a deafening sound. Immediately afterwards, the indestructible bone shield began to spread cracks like spider webs and immediately shattered into pieces. The remaining power was undiminished, and the sharp blade light turned into the roar of a wolf, and the silver moon in the sky tore towards the red and white bone body. Wei Yin kept dodging, and his forehead bone was cut off, leaving a bottomless knife mark. Large drops of scarlet blood fell from the bone gaps, soaking the skull in an extremely bloody red. Wei Yin's eyes were dazed, his mind was blank. This was the first time in all these years that he saw himself bleeding. Chapter 367, Who told you that I am alone? You still want to protect others? Ridiculous. You really think I'm not here? Nangong Chen sneered, flicked his knife with his finger, and the terrifying wolf roared in the void. Behind Wei Yin, the 3 quasi-saints died tragically under this killing technique. Although the remaining 2, MOU, managed to escape, they were covered with scars and seriously injured. Seeing this, Wei Yin was furious and said coldly, "It's not easy for a saint king like you to cultivate. Don't be shameless. I'm a member of the Blood God sect. How dare you stop me today?" He just couldn't believe it. He had cultivated to the level of Saint King, but he had never heard of the Blood God cult that was at its peak. "Stop you." Nangong Yu's white hair swayed as he shook his head slightly. When he raised his eyes, a cold, murderous intent surged from them. He held his sword to his chest and said, "You hurt my grandson. Today I will kill you." Wei Yin laughed. This was the first time he had seen such an arrogant person. "Kill me. You and I are both Saint Kings. What can you use to kill me just by yourself?" "Oh, who told you that I'm alone?" Nangong Yu's eyes were filled with amusement. As soon as he finished speaking, 3 terrifying figures appeared in the void. The old man in the lead had an ethereal appearance, dressed in a Confucian robe that fluttered calmly. He held a 3-foot-long green brush in his hand, his eyebrows tilted like pine trees, and his every move exuded a sense of righteousness. On both sides of it stood a man and a woman. The man stood tall and straight, wearing a Shura mask, his black hair dancing wildly, and a golden dagger hung at his waist. There was a golden crow totem on the blade, emitting a tremendous, murderous aura. The woman was wearing a jade-colored bodhisattva mask, looking like she was crying and laughing, making it impossible to tell whether she was sad or happy. On her waist was a blue-green dagger engraved with blue phoenix patterns, and it shone with a sharp, cold light. They just stood there, and it was as if there was a terrifying pressure sweeping in all directions, making all the powerful men in the air unable to raise their heads. "I've met the old mansion master." The three of them bowed slightly and spoke respectfully in unison. "No need to be polite." Nangong nodded slightly, a hint of complacency rising from the corner of his mouth, and looked at the red skeleton not far away. On the other side, Wei-Yin was already pale and sweating profusely. His eyes were fixed on the three people who appeared out of nowhere, and his heart was filled with horror. How is this possible? Why is there so many Saint Kings in such a small Xiantian domain? What's even more terrifying is that the three Saint Kings seem to obey the old man's orders. What kind of force is the other party? For a moment, his thoughts were in turmoil and his fingers clenched tightly. Behind him, the remaining Mayo and the other two saw this scene. Their pupils shrank slightly, and their minds went blank. "I'm dead. I'm really dead now." Having been in the Blood God cult for so long, how could they not sense that these three people who appeared were clearly genuine Saint Kings? Soon, Wei-Yin suppressed the shock in his heart and said in a deep voice, "May I ask who you are, sir?" "I am Wei-Yin from the Blood God cult." "Do you really want to become an enemy of our cult just for a genius from a tiny place?" When talking about the Blood God cult, a hint of confidence flashed in his eyes. Apart from anything else, in the entire 9 heavens and 10 realms, although their Blood God cult was not a famous sect, it was not one that could be easily provoked. It's fine that the old man just now didn't know the horror of the Blood God cult. After all, ignorance is fearless. But he just couldn't believe that the three Saint Kings who came here couldn't be unaware of the reputation of the Blood God cult. As soon as these words were spoken, Imoyu also stood up, his eyes shining, and he echoed them. "Yes, my Blood God cult has countless powerful people and is well known throughout the 9 heavens and 10 realms. Since you have such strength, why do you need to be inferior to others in this small place? Why not join us? I believe that with your strength, it won't be long before you can rise to prominence in my sect, become a venerable, and even achieve immortality. Why waste your future in this small world?" After saying that, Wei-Yin gave him an appreciative look and continued, "That's right. If you three join our Blood God cult and cooperate with us, we can slay these villains. I will report the truth to headquarters and give all the credit to you three. I won't take any of it. The reward for this mission is at least enough to allow you to enter the next great realm. I'm afraid you don't know, so I might as well tell you here that after the Saint King is the Venerable. In the realm of the Venerable, one is the most respected in the world, living as long as the gods, and being revered by all. When talking about the realm of the Venerable, Wei-Yin could not hide the yearning in his eyes, and his eyes were full of passion. He just couldn't believe that anyone could refuse the temptation of becoming an immortal. "Of course, even if you have no interest in my religion, as long as you help us leave safely today, I will reward you handsomely in the future. I will give you all the holy medicines and ancient immortal artifacts." Wei-Yin bowed and spoke in an extremely sincere tone. Even a person with a heart of stone would be moved by this sugar-coated bullet. He didn't believe that the other party would refuse. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was shocked, and then there was a hint of anger in their eyes. What a shameless Blood God cult. They can't even defeat us, yet they're planning to bribe the experts from the Xiantian realm. Despicable, truly despicable, worthy of being a running dog of the Blood God cult. In the city of Chu, the monks in the streets and alleys were furious and used all kinds of dirty words. They didn't know the identities of the three powerful men who came, and they were afraid that they would be bribed by the other party. After all, this kind of thing had happened in the Xiantian domain before. Even the strong men present had worried expressions on their faces. After all, the temptation of enlightenment was too great for beings like them. Some powerful figures from various sects looked at the two masks in the void and fell into deep thought. They seemed to have seen each other somewhere before, but could not remember. But soon, the next scene made their worries disappear. In the void, the majestic man in the Shura mask sneered as if he had heard a huge joke. "Just because you dogs look down on things, you think you can turn me against me? I forgot to tell you that I am the Shura of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. I will only serve the Divine Dynasty in this life." Then, the woman beside him spoke up, also sneering. "I am Jade Face of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. I will only serve the Divine Dynasty in this life. If you hurt my prince, you will die here today, even if you give me elixirs." After these words were spoken, the strong men present were delighted at first, and then their pupils shrank slightly, as if they had thought of something horrible. Jade-faced Shura. It's actually them. They're actually from the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. Of course, there were also some people who had never heard of them and asked curiously, "Jade-faced Shura, were they famous before?" They are more than just famous. They are a household name among the cultivators of the three states in our time. The two of them are so powerful that they are comparable to the top masters of famous sections. They are famous for assassinating powerful people from various sects in the three states, including some elders and geniuses from major sections. They are both ruthless and stealthy, and every time they strike, they carry a pair of daggers. One is called the Golden Crow, and the other is the Blue Wand. These two daggers, along with the masks they wear, are also considered their symbols. Whenever one of these appears, it means someone is about to suffer. Are they bad guys? The man frowned and whispered, No, no, no. On the contrary, they were considered the light of righteousness by the common monks of that era, because those they killed were all evil people who had committed heinous crimes. Some people even saw the jade-faced Shura in the city, giving porridge to refugees and even robbing the rich to help the poor. Everything they do is unjust, just like the previous palace master of the Sun God Palace, who was beheaded by the jade-faced Shura right after taking office. After his death, it was revealed that he had refined an entire city's population into blood pills. Millions of people died with their eyes wide open. No one dared to speak out for him, except for jade-faced Shura and the other two who dared to stand up. It is said that afterward, the dirty water in the Sun Palace attracted saints from various religions to attack and kill the two. But fortunately, jade-faced Shura disappeared after that incident. From then on, the story between the two was considered a taboo among all religions and was kept secret. Some speculated that the jade-faced Shura had long since died, while others said that they had suffered from numerous hidden illnesses in their previous lives and were searching for elixirs and precious medicines in the mountains. But no matter what, the jade-faced Shura and the other two were both stars that could not be ignored in my Xintian territory during that era. In later generations, some people also praised them as the blue wand that reflects the heart and the golden crow that burns the delusion. But what I never imagined was that the two of them actually lived in seclusion in the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. But come to think of it, they both have too much blood debt on their shoulders. Now, only the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty can accommodate them. The red-haired old man sighed. As soon as these words were spoken, all the monks present were shocked. They had never thought that in this era, there would still be such chivalrous men who were dedicated to serving the people. The blue phoenix reflects my heart. The golden crow burns away my delusions. Someone murmured, deeply shocked. In an instant, everyone's eyes turned into deep respect. There was even a white-haired old woman in the crowd. After recognizing the two familiar figures, her eyes moistened and she choked up, saying, My benefactors, after 100 years, I finally see you again. In the void, following the two men's domineering words, the faces of the blood god cult members suddenly became extremely ugly, especially Wei Yin. His face turned blue and purple, and his breathing was rapid, like a volcano about to erupt at any time. You guys. But before he could finish his words, he was interrupted by another voice. I'm the head of the academy. Even if I don't have the might of a general from the heavenly abyss who fought hundreds of battles, I still have the magnanimity of standing in the snow at the Xingtan for 4,000 years. You, the stinking bastards of the gutter, are worthy of trying to incite rebellion against me. Kong Daoyan shouted coldly, a sense of righteousness surging from beneath his Confucian robe. Those words were like the sound of bells, drums, and thunder, exploding in the sky. The words fell. The two saints, Mayo, could not withstand this overwhelming pressure. They vomited blood on the spot. Their faces turned pale, and they crawled in the void. Although Wei Yin was not in such a miserable state, a trace of blood still came out from the corner of his mouth under the resistance of the evil spirit. His eyes were filled with shock. He had not expected that the other party's Saint King actually achieved sainthood through Confucianism and Taoism. This is a natural restraint for the martial arts they practice. Not far away, Nangong sighed, it's still scholars who speak. Look, without even using a few dirty words, these rats are so angry. It seems that when I go out in the future, I still have to bring scholars with me. Old Lord, you're joking. I'm just borrowing your power to intimidate these thieves. Kong Daoyan smiled and said modestly. On the other side, Zhao Lei was also shocked when he saw this scene. He cried out, Is this person also from your divine dynasty? Qin Song standing by was also dumbfounded. It was hard for him to imagine that even at their current level, there would still be something that surprised them so much. Under the gaze of the two, Qi Yin nodded slightly, with a hint of pride on his face. Of course, Kong Sheng is the dean of our Tianyuan Academy. He has countless disciples and has devoted all his efforts to our Tianyuan divine dynasty, cultivating many talented people. By the way, Confucius once taught the young master's mother for a period of time, and the young master also went to study in the academy. As soon as these words were spoken, The eyes of Zhao Lei and Chen Song widened in disbelief. They looked at the girl who was taking care of someone nearby, trying to confirm it on her face. After Su Li fed Nangong Chen a nourishing pill, she looked at him indifferently and nodded slightly on that stunningly beautiful face. Then, he turned around and continued to take care of Nangong Chen. When the two met, their minds went blank and they didn't know what to say for a moment. He is a being above saints. Not only do they not support him in their divine dynasty, but they also let him teach and educate people. Did they hear it right? What shocked them the most was the second half of the other party's sentence. What? This Confucius actually taught those two monsters. The talents of Goddess Su and the one with double pupils were terrifying to the naked eye. Someone who could teach such monsters. I can't even imagine it. It seems that it's time to go and observe the mysterious Eastern dynasty when I have time. After a long time, Chun Song slowly reacted, stroked his beard, and spoke. Zhao Lei also nodded, his eyes full of curiosity. He wanted to see what the difference was in being able to cultivate such a monstrous force. In Shu City, some cultivators from Eastern Shenzhou were extremely excited after seeing that familiar face. Sage Kong. It really is him. He's probably the only one in the world with such a righteous spirit. As soon as these words were spoken, some people from Zhongzhou showed curiosity and asked, "Hey, do you cultivators from East Shenzhou recognize that Confucian senior?" The other people present also looked over, their eyes also burning with passion. After all, this was Central Shenzhou, and they didn't know why the majority of the people were from the Tianyuan divine dynasty. I just recognized them. The name of Confucius is well known throughout the entire East Shenzhou. Everyone knows him. Looking across the entire East Shenzhou, who doesn't know that the dean of Tianyuan Academy is Confucius? The young cultivator from East Shenzhou waved his hand, then glanced around, as if remembering something, and whispered, "By the way, speaking of Tianyuan Academy, it has a great background. It is not only a holy place for cultivation in the minds of the younger generation of the entire East Shenzhou, but even according to the people of Tianyuan divine dynasty, the famous Double Pupil man and Su Shen both stayed there." Chapter 368, Behead Wei Yin. Everyone is amazed. After these words were spoken, everyone present was shocked. What? Did the man with double pupils and Goddess Su stay in there? The young monk nodded calmly. After receiving his confirmation, everyone was even more surprised and shocked. Yes, I can't even imagine how talented Confucius must be to have taught such a monstrous person. That Confucius is quite impressive. Just now, he shocked the blood god cult warrior to the point of vomiting blood with just one sentence. You know, none of the warriors in our central divine land can do that. I dare not imagine how terrifying the origins of the Tianyuan divine dynasty are, let alone anything else. Just talking about the Tianyuan Academy he just mentioned, I don't know how many academies in our Zhongshenzhou it has crushed. Yes, just based on the fact that he has taught people with double pupils and Su Shen, he is already of great value. Everyone was impressed by the extraordinary nature of the Tianyuan divine dynasty, and their eyes were filled with envy. Even they were tempted to go and see it. You are really going too far. In the void, Wei Yin was furious, his green eyes flashing with murderous intent. He swallowed a green pill and suddenly clasped his hands together. In all the time he has been in charge of the 10 domains, he has never suffered such injustice in any domain, let alone such humiliation. Wherever he goes to, everything goes smoothly. Who dares not to obey him? Today, even if he is at the end of his strength, he will fight his way out. In an instant, the red skeleton burst out with blood and energy. Its empty eyes were filled with evil fire, and a powerful pressure suddenly descended. As that aura burst out, the expressions of everyone present changed slightly. They could feel that the red-robed envoy seemed to be twice as strong as before. Below, Chu Shan's pupil shrank. Mid-stage Saint King. That's right, under the influence of the life-burning pill specially made by the blood god cult, Wei Yin had undergone a qualitative change. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of all the strong men present trembled. They all knew very well that the higher the realm, the greater the gap between the small realms would be. If the people from the Tianyuan divine dynasty have lower cultivation than the other party, they're likely to be killed by the other party. At this moment, they were willing but unable to do anything and could only watch those people fight. With their current strength as quasi-saints, they could not help in a battle of this level even if they wanted to. In the void, just when everyone thought that these strong men from the Tianyuan divine dynasty would take this seriously, unexpectedly, the strong man with the black knife laughed. "Are you still struggling in vain?" Nangong Yu sneered, his face showing disdain. The ink knife in his hand began to glow, burning with light blue flames, blazing in the void. "Now that we have said almost everything, it's time for you to die." As soon as he finished speaking, the terrifying sword intent transformed into the shadow of the Wolf King in the sky, looking down at the red skeleton in horror. The evil spirit rushed into the sky, actually overshadowing the bloody energy. The Wolf King is also the Dharma image of Nangong Chen. At this moment, the aura of the late Saint King burst out in full view. Wei Yin's face suddenly changed. In full view of everyone, he stopped, turned into a human form, turned around, and ran away. The previous surging momentum instantly turned into nothingness. He had never imagined that in such a small Xiantian domain, there would be a late-stage Saint King. How could he possibly fight this? You ants just wait. When I return to headquarters, you will be dead. He took out his Chinkoan bag, gritted his teeth with a ferocious look on his face, and a boundary-breaking talisman flew out into the air. Just as he clenched his 5 fingers and wanted to crush it, the light blue firework suddenly appeared, illuminating the pale pupils brilliantly. The next moment, he suddenly felt dizzy, and when he turned around, he saw the headless body with bright red blood gushing from its neck. What's going on? Didn't I already use the boundary-breaking talisman? Whose headless body is this? No, this clothing is mine. What about my head? At this moment, Wei Yin suddenly realized that he had been beheaded. Right in front of the headless body, Nangong Chen calmly retracted the ink knife, and the black dragon armor gleamed brightly under the cold light. At the same time, the figure of the Grey Wolf King in the sky was gradually fading away. He grabbed the hair on Wei Yin's head with one hand, lifted it up skillfully, and let the blood flow down from his dry palm. Soon, a golden light burst out from the head at an extremely fast speed, flying outward desperately, trying to escape from here. When Nangong Chen saw it, the corners of his mouth twitched, and his eyes showed a hint of surprise. Oh. He did not make a move, but just watched the golden light escape quietly with deep eyes. The next moment, a cold shout rang out. Down! Kong Daoyan uttered a word, and the 3-foot green pin fell suddenly. In the void, the vast and majestic energy condensed and turned into a white jade cage, which directly covered the fleeing golden light and sucked it into the cage. If someone looked closely, they would definitely find that the golden light was Wei Yin's soul. At the same time, not far away, the Shura jade-faced man and the other man also captured the souls of the Moyo and the other man and slowly walked over. Old Palace Master, I have fulfilled my mission. The 2 Shura jade-faced men bowed and injected the spirits in their hands into the white jade cage. Good. Nangong Chen nodded slightly, a look of satisfaction on his face. At this moment, the whole audience was silent. Everyone present stared at the scene in the sky in a daze, obviously not yet reacting. I thought it would be a close battle, but I didn't expect it to end so quickly. How long did it take? Someone asked in a lost voice, eyes full of shock. 4 breaths? 3 breaths? No, none of them. Surprisingly, it only took 2 breaths. After these words were spoken, everyone fell silent again. The blood god cult, which was so terrifying and even so powerful that it made them despair, was completely eliminated in just 2 breaths by the powerful people from the Tianyuan divine dynasty. In the void, the strong men from various sects also fell into silence. None of them spoke a word, their pupils filled with horror. Those who can reach their level naturally see farther and more deeply than ordinary people. Others don't know what 2 breaths represent, but they know it very well. This means that as soon as they met, they were killed instantly, without even having time to react. The gap between the 2 is like a chasm. This is a complete massacre. It's not even a real battle. After a long time, Elder Bear shook his head and sighed. It's hard to imagine. That's a realm above saints, a realm that they have been trying to reach all their lives. But he was easily killed in seconds by someone stronger. What an irony and reality this is. Today we have finally opened our eyes. The old sect leader also had a look of emotion on his face, looking at the 4 figures in the sky with full of awe. No one expected that in this mortal situation today, they would actually win. Suddenly, Ningrong thought of something and smiled. Fendao must be regretting his actions to the point of madness now. More than that, it's very likely that he abandoned the Sun Palace and ran away. Wang Qi shook his head and said jokingly, his eyes flashing. He just noticed the scene of the disciples of the Sun God Palace below. When they heard this, they smiled at each other and understood what the other meant. Chu Shanha on the side remained silent, still recalling the battle just now in his mind. Even a mid-stage Saint King could be killed instantly. The old man in the void was definitely more terrifying than he had imagined. At this moment, he was somewhat confused. He couldn't understand this force that had suddenly appeared out of nowhere and couldn't see through the other party's strengths and weaknesses. He was wondering, if that venerable one came to the mortal world a few months later, would things really develop as he expected? After all, he had witnessed with his own eyes the terrifying speed of cultivation of the man with double pupils. He had made rapid progress in just a few months. Thinking back to the first time he met him, When he was fighting against Prince Ao Long, he was just a talented person at that time. But now that he has returned from the immortal hidden realm, he is already half a step away from becoming a quasi-sage. Even the other party's terrifying power is already on par with their older generation of quasi-saints. Thinking of this, he took a deep breath, his eyes filled with complexity, and muttered to himself, "If I had given you a few more years, perhaps that venerable being in the lower realms wouldn't have been able to do anything to you, and I would have regretted it. Unfortunately, you only have a few months left." After saying that, he turned his gaze to the group of geniuses in the void. Seeing that his daughter had a cold face and never looked at him, he laughed at himself and shook his head. "You will understand it later." At this moment, the geniuses who had returned from the immortal treasure were also stunned, with disbelief in their eyes. They originally thought that the battle between such powerful people would be very close, but they didn't expect it to be so fast and so easy. So fast that they all forgot that today's crisis had been resolved. Of course, this also indirectly reflects the terrifying strength of those powerful people in the Tianyuan divine dynasty. After a long time, Wang Tung murmured, "Is this the power behind Brother Nangong?" After hearing this, everyone fell silent, their eyes filled with horror. Previously, they thought that those with double pupils were also from top-notch forces like them. Now, they regretted their narrow vision. This is not a first-rate force at all. It is clearly the only super first-rate force in the entire Xintian domain, and that is not an exaggeration at all. Have you ever seen a force with so many saints? Have you ever seen a force with beings above saints capable of taking action? You must know that among their forces, there's only one saint who can be dispatched openly, and there are one or two more powerful saints, all of whom are hiding in the ancestral land and will never take action unless it is absolutely necessary. Not to mention that the fact that they were ambushed by the blood god cult this time probably wouldn't alarm the powerful beings in the family. After all, their value is not enough for the entire clan. At most, they can only send a saint to support, but this is already very terrifying in the Xintian realm. After all, only their top forces can possess a saint, and the other side sent so many powerful people just to welcome them. Not to mention those strong men, they were actually respectful to juniors like them, which was simply unimaginable. Every saint in their tribe is high and mighty and must not be offended. Even the most talented geniuses in their tribe could only meet each other once, and their only job was to serve tea and water to the other party. They simply couldn't even imagine that someone like Nangong Chen could command these saints at will and be on equal footing with these powerful men. At this moment, these geniuses who had just returned from Xinzong were once again hit hard by the difference in status. It was also the first time for them to feel so inferior in front of their peers. Comparing yourself to others is really frustrating. Only a family like theirs could produce Brother Nangong and Goddess Su. Lu Daju shook his head, sighed, and laughed secretly. Fortunately, I hugged the other party's thigh early. Now it seems that this is more than just a thigh. It is a towering tree. The others also nodded, obviously agreeing with each other's statement. By the way, did Brother Nangong faint just now? Suddenly, Chowli seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone suddenly realized what was happening and a look of surprise appeared on their faces. Among them, the figures of Shimeng, Chu Yin, and Jiang Yingyue had long disappeared. The other side, Su Li was still taking good care of Nangong Chen, but what was strange was that a hint of blush appeared on that crystal clear and beautiful face. "Chiao, do I really have to feed him like that?" "Well, what else? Don't you want him to hurry up?" "Hey, you two are already husband and wife. Why are you still so shy and hesitant?" After hearing this, Chiao, who was standing by, said with some regret that her friend had failed to live up to her expectations. The whiteness of her chest was shaking with anger, and you could vaguely see some of her beauty. Isn't it just chewing it up and feeding it to mouth? What's the big deal? Besides, the kid is already asleep, right? Just treat him as dead. Seeing that she was still hesitant, Chiao added impatiently, then turned her head to look to the side, a cunning gleam flashing in her narrow and beautiful eyes. "Of course, if you're afraid, the Emperor, taking pity on you, wouldn't be wronged. I'll take your place. Just think of it as me suffering." Chiao coughed lightly, not daring to look at her, her eyes somewhat evasive. That's not good." Su Li pursed her lips slightly and glanced at the handsome face in her arms. Her crystal-clear cheeks became hotter and her beautiful eyes flashed, as if she was thinking about something. Obviously, she was a little moved, but when she saw the boy's soft and thin lips covered with a layer of silver gauze in the moonlight, she couldn't help swallowing. In an instant, she seemed to be under a spell, and her breathing became increasingly rapid as she looked at the young man beneath her. Chapter 369. Qingyu and others' plan, or my grandson's own efforts. Beside him, Chiao was still chattering away, with anticipation flashing in her eyes from time to time. "It's okay. What's the big deal? I'm just controlling you. I'm not kissing you personally, so you're the one being taken advantage of. At worst, we can do this. You have 5 elixirs, I'll have 3, you have 2, and we could take turns. Isn't that fine? After a few breaths of silence, and still no response, she turned her head cautiously. Seeing this scene, Chiyao's pupils suddenly shrank. At some point, Suli had already closed her eyes, lowered her head, and touched the boy's soft lips, her snow-white hair scattered on her handsome face. She didn't even notice Chiyao's gaze. She was so engrossed in the kiss that she kept putting the pill in her mouth into the other's mouth. Chiyao's face was a little stiff. She pursed her lips and silently turned her head to look elsewhere. A hint of regret appeared in her beautiful eyes. If I had known earlier, I would have told her other methods. She felt so confused. She was the one who had been urging Suli, and now she was the one who was unhappy. After a while, an extremely domineering black flying boat came from the distant sky. The flying boat roared. An array of light burst out behind it. The moonlight shone on the black and gold dragon pattern on the boat's body, making it shine like a black dragon flying through the clouds. When everyone saw this, they all speculated which big shot might have arrived. This extremely domineering flying boat was so finely crafted that it was rare even in the entire central Shenzhou. Soon, the world could clearly see the flag on the flying boat, on which were engraved the majestic words Tianyuan. He's actually from the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty, someone exclaimed in Chu City. When these words were spoken, the eyes of the others were shocked. Another group of people has arrived from the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. Oh my god, they really couldn't imagine how high the status of the man with double pupils was in the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty to attract so many people to come and greet him. Of course, they also got some benefit from it. If it weren't for the strong men from Tianyuan coming here today, their Chucheng would have been destroyed by the people from the Blood God cult long ago. For this, they are still grateful to the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. On the other side, in the restaurant, at the table near the windowsill, the 4 people from Monghuang were so shocked that they couldn't speak for a long time. Especially Lan Linchuan. His face felt burning with pain. Originally, he thought that the evildoer from the Central Plains would surely die. After all, the red-robed cultist was at the peak of his power at that time, and he gave people an invincible sense of strength. Who would have thought that at this critical moment, the strong man behind the monster suddenly arrived and beheaded the red-robed envoy in 2 breaths? This is just like a dream. I don't know if anyone will believe it if I tell them. He lived to this age and still thought that he had reached the level of a quasi-saint. Even if he couldn't dominate the entire Central Plains, he could at least run rampant in the Central Plains. What happened today did change his mind and had a huge impact on him. He didn't dare to think about how terrifying the powerful man who killed the red-robed envoy was. He was afraid that with one strike of his sword, the entire wilderness would be destroyed. Father, do you think we can still invite that evildoer from the Central Plains? After a long time, Lan Linchuan whispered. After these words were spoken, the 3 of them were speechless. After all, anyone with a discerning eye could see that the monster had a terrifying background and was an existence that their Wuling clan, or even the entire wilderness, could not afford to provoke. If anything were to happen to the other party in the wilderness, their lives would probably not be enough to pay for it. Yes, master, why don't we just forget it? Let's go with someone else. The eldest son Lan Jia also echoed, his eyes full of fear. Then you have a better candidate? Lan Mo took a deep breath and spoke. The 2 shook their heads. Seeing this, Lan Mo sneered. That's right. Now that the wilderness competition is coming, we don't have any time to choose other Central Plains quasi-Saint Rel powerhouses. Only that Central Plains monster is the one that suits my heart the most. Our Lan family can no longer afford to lose. We no longer have any chance to make mistakes. We only have one chance. What we have to do is to win 100% this time, even if it means sacrificing everything. And now, the opportunity is right here. Then what can we offer to get the other party to participate on our behalf? After a moment of silence, Lan Linchuan asked unwillingly, looking at the old man with the broken arm. Lan Mo slowly uttered 2 words, and the pupils of the 3 people suddenly shrank. So, is this the power behind the young master? Qingyu looked at the scene in the sky and muttered to himself. Qing Fan was also silent. Neither of them had expected that today's horrific crisis would end in this way. The strength of the powerful people behind the young master was far beyond their imagination, even beyond everyone's expectations. Thinking of this, both of them had a hint of inferiority on their faces. Recalling the days they spent with Nangong Chen in the Qing family compound, they felt an indescribable dream. We actually know such a person? I don't know what happened to the young master. He suddenly fainted just now. When Qingyu thought of the scene just now, there was an indescribable worry in her beautiful eyes like stars. Don't worry, sister. The young master will be fine. If there is any problem, those people will not be so calm. Qing Fan pointed to the sky and shook his head. Hearing this, Qing Yu nodded slightly and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. After hesitating for a while, Qing Fan finally spoke. Sister, after this is over, I want to go to the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. Qing Yu's face remained calm upon hearing this, as if he had expected him to say that. Seeing that she was silent, Qing Fan didn't dare to speak either. Okay, I'll go with you. After a long time, Qing Yu curled the corners of his mouth and spoke crisply. If it were her in the past, she might have refused without hesitation, but now, after witnessing today's battle, she realized that a genius who has been cultivated in a greenhouse will never grow up. What's more, the place they are in is even worse, not even a greenhouse. If those strong men had not arrived today, ordinary people like them would have been buried in this land long ago. If they want to survive, they can only go to a place that can shelter them and their brother. Obviously, the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty is definitely the most correct choice at the moment. Moreover, the most important point is that the young master is also there. Qing Fan was shocked. He had already prepared himself to be beaten up by Qing Yu or scolded severely by her, but he didn't expect it to be so simple. But before he could be happy, a polite voice came from beside him. Would you two be willing to take me along? Lan Mo came to their table and spoke slowly. Next to him stood his granddaughter Lan Xian. You're eavesdropping on us again. Qing Yu's face was a little angry, and her pretty face was very alert. This group of people who came from this desolate land eavesdropped on their conversations time and time again. Did they really think they had no temper? No, you guys misunderstood. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but our two tables were just too close to each other, and I happened to overhear. I'm really sorry. Lan Mo quickly waved his hands and apologized sincerely. The girl wearing a three-color horse-face skirt also hurried over, hugged Qing Yu's arm, and said softly and coquettishly, I'm sorry, sister. Grandpa really didn't mean it. He's a quasi-saint with a strong sense of perception. We were too close, so I accidentally heard it. As soon as these words were spoken, Qing Yu's expression changed slightly. The old man with a broken arm among these wild people in front of him is actually a quasi-saint? Qing Fan was not in a much better situation. His eyelids were twitching. The person he had been chatting with for so long turned out to be a quasi-saint? Since you are quasi-saints, I can't take you with me. Who knows what you were thinking? Qing Yu still looked at them vigilantly with her beautiful eyes, not relaxing at all because of the girl's coquettish behavior beside her. A quasi-saint like this actually wanted to go to the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty? If she did anything bad to the young master, wouldn't she be committing a great sin? Seeing this, Lan Xian had no choice but to explain to her slowly. Oh, so you guys have something to do with the master? After a while, Qing Fan suddenly realized. Lan Mo and Lan Xian nodded like chicks pecking at rice. You really didn't lie to us? Qing Yu looked at them both suspiciously. Although they looked like good people, one couldn't judge a person based on intuition alone. I swear on my heart that if what I said is false, I will not die a good death. Lan Mo said with a serious face. As soon as he finished speaking, lightning suddenly flashed outside the window. Seeing this, Qing Yu and the other two finally believed their words. Well, in that case, you should come with us, Qing Yu said softly. In the sky, after listening to Qi Yun's story, Nangong Yu also understood the whole story. His eyes flashed, and he said, So, this beast used the soul-devouring banner to lock up the four of you, and even killed one of your saints. Then my grandson came out and used the human emperor's sword to kill 2 saints and 5 quasi-saints in one stroke. He frightened the red-robed envoy so much that he dared not attack, thus delaying time and using the azure lotus vision to rescue you? Right. Qi Yun nodded respectfully, and then added, The deceased saint was none other than the Li family's ancestor, Li Songhai. However, the strange thing is that his heart was shattered, and even his soul was nearly shattered, yet he was miraculously brought back to life by the young master. Oh, it turns out to be the ancestor of the Li family. Nangong Yu's eyes fixed on the old body covered with scars below, and then he said slowly, This wasn't a miracle that my grandson saved him. There are signs of tampering with his heart. It must be someone with a destiny who paid a huge price to keep him alive. After saying that, Qi Yun's brows were a little shocked. So that's what happened. He said there was no way he could survive with injuries this severe. At the same time, he was also somewhat amazed at the old mansion master's sharp eyesight, who could see the problem at a glance. By the way, after the young master rescued us, the red-robed envoy saw through his weakness. The prince had no choice but to strike with his sword and cut off the envoy's arm. Qi Yun continued, his eyes full of amazement when he said this. He couldn't even imagine that a genius who hadn't even reached the quasi-saint stage could actually unleash such terrifying power. At only 18 years old, he was able to kill 2 saints and 5 quasi-saints in public, and even stalemate with a saint-king-like existence for such a long time, breaking one of its arms. To be honest, in all my life, I have never seen such an amazing genius. Nangong was silent for a while before speaking, and then his eyes lit up as if he had thought of something. If he wasn't my biological grandson, I would have wanted to chop him in half and study him thoroughly. How could he have made such rapid progress? Qi-Yun's mouth twitched. He knew that the old master in front of him had his old illness again. The old mansion master had no special hobbies in his life. His only hobby was cultivation and studying martial arts. He often secluded himself in the mountains for more than 10 years at a time, and sometimes even for hundreds of years. He is nicknamed the Cultivation Maniac. If the palace master had not repeatedly warned the other party not to cultivate so crazily since the young master was born, for the sake of his grandson, I am afraid that in the past, the old palace master would still be cultivating at this moment. Of course, since the young master was born, the old mansion master's number of retreats has decreased significantly, and he has paid much more attention to the young master. They can all see this. Kong Sheng, Yumian, and Shura, who had been listening silently on the side, were all amazed at this moment. I didn't expect that after not seeing you for a few days, the prince has really impressed me. Kong Daoyan recalled that when the other party came to Tianyuan Academy, he was only at the Purple Mansion realm. Even at that time, the other party killed several sons of King Zhou in front of him, which left an extremely deep impression on him. He felt at that time that the young master of Tianyuan Mansion, who had been hiding for a long time, was definitely not a simple person. Later, just as he expected, the other party not only inherited the old dean's legacy, but even the Tianyuan spiritual steel that he had been pursuing all his life fell into his hands. Now, the other party has broken through to the half-step quasi-saint level. With that terrifying talent, he is indeed qualified to let Tianyuan Academy inherit. This made him sigh that the old dean's gaze was still as vicious as ever. In this respect, he was far inferior to him. Although Yamian and Shura were meeting Nangong Chen for the first time in real life, they were still quite shocked. A half-step quasi-saint who can fight against the Saint King. To be honest, this is several times more terrifying than the projection of the other party in the immortal treasure house that they saw when they were in the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. Moreover, the other party's state of mind and judgment of the situation when facing a strong man made them feel ashamed. Today, no matter who is a half-step quasi-saint, they can't save Chu Cheng from the current situation. Only Nangong Chen can do it, and it can only be Nangong Chen. No one else can do it. After meeting him today, I found that the prince is indeed, just as the legend said, a rare talent, extraordinary in bearing. He is as brave as the old mansion master was in his day. Jade Face praised. The old mansion master was very pleased with Yumian's flattery. Soon his face was flushed, and he could hardly suppress the smile on his face. Oh no, it's all because of the child's own efforts. Chapter 370 10 days later. Shura was silent for a while, then echoed. The energy that the Crown Prince unleashed in such a desperate situation and his calm assessment of the situation are very much like the Palace Master. And his terrifying martial arts, the power to stand alone against 1,000 enemies, are just like the old Palace Master in his day. The Crown Prince is like a combination of the Palace Master and the old Palace Master, with both divine bravery and a mind as monstrous as a demon. After hearing this, the old mansion master was a little surprised. Shura, who is usually very frugal with words, actually spoke so highly of Nangong Chen today and said so many words. I don't know whose blessing it was. Yes, your analysis is correct. This child will be extraordinary in the future. All we old bones have to do is to protect his growth before we die. The old mansion master shook his head and said softly. The three of them nodded seriously. Everyone in the Divine Dynasty knows that Nangong Chen and Su Li are like treasures to the entire Divine Dynasty. Since everything is fine, Confucius can go back first. The Divine Dynasty cannot be without the Sage King. The old mansion master looked at Kong Daoyan and gave instructions. Yes, Kong Daoyan bowed slightly and disappeared on the spot. Seeing this, the old mansion master cast his eyes on Shura Yumian and the other one, thinking about something. After a while, he looked into the distance and said softly, with a hint of coldness in his eyes, "As for the two of you, go and destroy the Sun Palace and the Hidden Dragon Dynasty. Now that our dynasty has truly emerged, it's time to intimidate others. For various reasons, I forgot to deal with them before, letting them run around for so long. Now it's time to collect the interest. He will kill everyone who bullies his grandson and granddaughter-in-law." Yes. Shura and Yumian looked at each other, saw the excitement in each other's eyes, and disappeared the next moment. Soon, Qi-Yin was the only one left present. Nangong glanced at him and said softly, "As for your words, please comfort those three saints on my behalf and tell them that if they need anything in the future, the Divine Dynasty owes them a favor." Yes. Qi-Yin bowed and was about to leave when he was stopped by Nangong. Also, you've worked hard during this period. When you're done, go to the flying boat and rest. I'll guard the flying boat on the way back. Everything will be fine. As for your broken holy bow, I will compensate you after returning to the Divine Dynasty." As he spoke, Nangong Yu's brows couldn't help but soften. Qi Yun's eyes welled up with tears when he heard this, and he said in a trembling voice, "I obey your command." "Go ahead." Nangong Yu nodded slightly. After finally ordering the 8 generals to go and protect Nangong Chen and others, soon, Nangong Yu was the only one left in the sky. He looked at the 3 souls in the white jade cage in his hand. His eyes gradually became colder and murderous, and he was completely different from before. "If you don't want to experience being tortured to the point of utter ecstasy, then I'll ask you a question and you answer it," he said coldly. After he finished speaking, the 3 spirits nodded tremblingly. "The other side? Great, the ancestor is not dead yet," Li Qixin said excitedly, kneeling in the void, holding the old hand, his eyes full of tears. Li Muxiu was the same. His eyes were red and his whole body was shaking. The famous twins of the Leaf family in the Xintian domain, who were once ranked 3rd on the first list of the heavenly ranking, were now crying like tearful people in front of the body of their ancestor. Seeing this scene, Chen Song beside him also shook his head and sighed. "I've already told you all, he's not dead. He was saved by that double-pupiled prince of the Divine Dynasty. If he hadn't discovered him in time, I'm afraid you wouldn't have seen him again." Oops, I almost said the wrong thing. It's easiest to call that guy the one with double pupils. Chen Song thought to himself, feeling somewhat relieved, and glanced at the strong men present. Hearing this, Li Qixin and the other 2 were shocked, and then they knelt on the ground behind Chen Song with a thud and cowed out. "Thank you, Brother Nangong, for saving me. This is such a great favor." But before he could finish his words, he was interrupted by Zhao Lei. "What are you thanking me for? He's still unconscious. If you want to kneel down, you have to wait for him to wake up. Get up now." He spoke softly, raised his hand, and a stream of spiritual power came down, helping the 2 of them up. To be honest, he also admired the Li brothers, who valued friendship and loyalty. Chen Song looked at the 2 of them, standing there stupidly, and smiled, with a flicker of admiration in his eyes, and said, "What are you looking at? Have you forgotten that the crown prince of the Divine Dynasty fainted just now? Do you really think we would lie to you? I dare not. I would like to ask you 2 seniors, what happened to Brother Nangong?" Li Qixin spoke first, his eyes filled with worry. Chen Song hesitated for a moment before speaking out. There's no danger to his life. Without the Divine Dynasty's permission, he didn't dare tell anyone else about Nangong Chen's true situation. After hearing this, the 2 of them breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank you for the information, Senior. Please tell the people of Tianyuan Divine Dynasty for me. If Brother Nangong wakes up, please let me know anytime. We will come to thank you." Li Qixin bowed and spoke sincerely, neither humble nor arrogant. "Well, I understand. I will tell you." Soon, Qian suddenly appeared beside them, nodded slightly, and slowly walked towards them. After seeing this, Chen Song and Zhao Lei quickly made way for them. Li Qixin and Li Muxiu's faces lit up with joy. They recognized that the other party was Brother Nangong's protector. Getting the other party's promise would be great. Qian looked at them, bowed slightly, and said, "Due to the recent incident, each of you has rendered meritorious service to our Divine Dynasty. The old palace master said that the Divine Dynasty owes you a favor to the Leaf family, the Heavenly Sword Holy Land, and the Heavenly Formation Holy Land. If you need anything, please feel free to ask me." After saying this, Chen Song and Zhao Lei looked at each other and saw the joy in each other's eyes. This favor is not a small favor. It is a favor acknowledged by the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty itself. As for Li Qixin and the other 2, they were a little confused. Wasn't the ancestor saved by Brother Nangong? Why did the other party still do them a favor in the end? Chen Song also hurriedly put forward his request and said softly, "No need for favors. I do have a request, and only the Divine Dynasty can do it." "Speak." "I have a granddaughter named Juing, who is a genius in formation from my Heavenly Formation Holy Land. I want her to follow the Crown Prince. Is that possible?" Chen Song's eyebrows were tense, and he spoke tremblingly. Qian hesitated for a moment after hearing this, then responded, "This matter concerns the Crown Prince and is of great importance. I will first report it to the Divine Dynasty. If they agree, I will notify you as soon as possible." Chen Song's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he nodded. Soon, Qian turned his gaze to the other people. Zhao Lei shook his head. "I haven't thought about it yet. I'll talk about it later." "So do we," Li Qixin said nervously as well. Seeing this, Qian nodded slightly. Just as he was about to leave, 2 young figures hurried over from a distance. "Wait a minute, Senior. How is Nangong Chen?" Shimeng panted heavily, sweat dripping down her face, and spoke out. Beside him, Although Chu Yin didn't say anything, she was looking at Chi Yun nervously, her hands clenched. Chi Yin was a little stunned. He didn't expect that it would be these two women. He knew these two people. One seemed to be the saint of the astronomical Holy Land, and the other seemed to be the saint of the Chu family. He had never thought that these two saints would actually come over and ask about the young master's condition. This didn't seem like an ordinary relationship. Thinking of this, he didn't give the other person a perfunctory answer and said seriously, "It's nothing serious. Just need a rest for a few days. This is what Nangong you said at the time." And he told the other party exactly as it was. The two women breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this. And not far away, Su Li was breathing slightly, her face flushed, and the sweet sweat fell on her delicate collarbone, giving people a different kind of beauty. This was her first time kissing for so long that her mouth was almost numb. But fortunately, all 5 pills were successfully delivered into Nangong Chen's mouth. Thinking of this, Su Li breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at the few crystal liquid beads on the boy's thin lips, she couldn't help but think of the scene just now, and her beautiful eyes were filled with shyness. "Do you know what you're called now?" At this moment, Chi Yao's voice sounded faintly, seeming to carry an inexplicable resentment. "Like what?" Su Li tilted her head, confused, both sloppy and playful. Chi Yao snorted coldly and crossed her arms. Su Li heard this and was about to say something, but heard several familiar voices coming from not far away. "Master, we are here." "Sister, I'm here too." Su Li looked over and saw that the black flying boat had already stopped not far away. Wang Yuxuan, Zhou Wan'er, and Su Yao were rushing towards this side excitedly. When everything was over, all the major forces rushed to Chu City. Not long after, the news of the many powerful Blood God sect members attacking the Xianzong Tianjiao spread throughout the entire Xiantian realm, instantly causing an uproar. At first, some people did not take it seriously, thinking that the Blood God cult was just a small-time gang that was not worthy of being mentioned. It was not a particularly large force, and they could not send many strong men to intercept and kill it. As a result, when they learned that the Blood God cult had dispatched 8 quasi-saints for saints and even a saint king that day, all major forces in the 3 states fell silent. They could never have imagined that the Blood God cult, which was as small as a rat in the gutter, would have so many powerful people and such a strong foundation. The powerful men sent here are enough to destroy any top force in Xiantian domain, not to mention anything else. Just when they were wondering whether there were many powerful people from various sects ambushed in Chu City, and the casualties were so heavy that the Blood God sect was forced to retreat, they received shocking news. On that day, the strong men from Xiantian realm were no longer able to fight. The 4 saints were all captured by the red-robed envoy of the Blood God cult. The Blood God cult even crippled the ancestor of the Li family and was preparing to massacre Chu City. It just so happened that the geniuses from Xianzong came back. Originally, it was thought that those geniuses would not be able to escape the fate of dying together after returning. But unexpectedly, the one with double pupils stood up. In the face of danger, he broke through to the half-step quasi-saint level and fought against the entire Blood God sect alone. You heard it right. At that time, only the man with double pupils fought against the 8 quasi-saints, for saints, and 1 saint king of the Blood God sect. It sounded like a fairy tale. Even all the cultivators in Chu City at that time believed that it was powerless to save the situation and it was just a last-ditch struggle. But who would have thought that the man with double pupils could kill the 5 quasi-saints and 2 saints of the Blood God sect in front of the Saint King with just 1 sword? Afterwards, he actually stalemated with the red-robed envoy for a long time and cut off one of his arms. You know, the one with double pupils is only half a step away from becoming a quasi-saint, while the strongest person on the other side has already reached a level above saint. Even under such circumstances, he was still able to turn the tide and fight for support from the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. And the strong men from the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty were even more outrageous. There were actually 4 saint kings and 8 saints. According to the cultivators present in Chu City that day, it only took 2 breaths of time for the strong men of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty to kill all the remaining members of the Blood God sect. When all the major forces heard the news, they were almost speechless with shock. There were 2 things that shocked them. The first was that the man with double pupils was just a genius. So why did he have such terrifying strength that he could actually fight against those powerful men of the Blood God cult as a half-step quasi-saint? The second is the power behind the man with double pupils and Goddess Su. They have always speculated that it is most likely the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty of the Hidden Family. They actually announced their arrival to the entire Xiantian domain in such a high-profile manner. Soon, after all the major forces learned the whole story, they were extremely angry and jointly issued the highest level of bounty order, preparing to purge the Blood God cult members who remained in Xiantian domain. Afterwards, all the top forces, supreme sects, and immortal holy places began to send envoys to deliver treasures to the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. The purpose of their action was not only to thank the genius of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty who saved their forces that day, but also to show their goodwill or obedience to the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. After all, they're such a terrifying force, but they're not stupid, and no one wants to be their enemy. Even the Li family, who used to be indifferent to worldly affairs, announced loudly that from now on, anyone who becomes an enemy of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty will be an enemy of their Li family. As the richest Double Pavilion in Xintian territory, it also promised to donate 30% of its resources to Tianyuan Divine Dynasty every year. At the same time, the Tianjin Holy Land and the Tianjin Holy Land also announced that they would build a place for communication among the disciples of various sects with the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty as the core. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that simply because the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty was born in eastern Shenzhou, the focus of the entire Xintian realm is now moving madly towards eastern Shenzhou. Of course, the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty accepted all these good intentions and took them all in, demonstrating the style of the Divine Dynasty. However, just when they thought that the Sun God Palace and the Qianlong Immortal Dynasty, which had previously had a bad relationship with the people with double pupils, would come out and admit their mistakes, they did not see them speak out. A few days later, someone who passed by those two places found out that the Sun God Palace and Qianlong Immortal Dynasty had already been destroyed by the powerful people of Tianyuan Divine Dynasty in just one night. At this moment, everyone's fear of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty deepened further. Even the major forces announced to their disciples that they must never make enemies with the people of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. Otherwise, they would be expelled from the force. But what's interesting is that no one saw Fan Dao's body in the Sun God Palace. Some strong men speculated that he had already heard the news and ran away, and many people agreed. Soon, 10 days had passed since that day, and the affairs of the Blood God cult had faded away. Chapter 371, Nangong Chen wakes up. During these 10 days, the geniuses who returned from the immortal treasures began to use their gains from the immortal treasures to make breakthroughs, which made many people's attention return to these geniuses. Among them, the Saintess of the Chu family, Chao Li of Qilin sect, Li Muxiu of the Li family, Wang Tung of the Wang family, and others have all broken through to the realm of God King, and the Overlord has even rebuilt his Dharma image and entered the late stage of God King. Even Lu Dezhu of Tianbao Pavilion, according to the people of Tianbao Pavilion, has broken through to the peak of great power and is only one step away from becoming a God King. Not long after, news came from the much-watched Tianyuan Divine Dynasty, saying that Goddess Su had reached the middle stage of the Divine King. This made everyone sigh that these geniuses had benefited a lot from this trip to the immortal treasure, and the gap between them and ordinary geniuses was getting bigger and bigger. Of course, as the person with the most double pupils and the one who has the most treasures in the immortal collection, he is also the focus of everyone's attention. However, the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty has not released any news about the person with double pupils. This also makes everyone curious about how far the person with double pupils has come now. The other party was already half a step away from becoming a quasi-saint before, and it is unknown how big the gap is between him and the geniuses behind him. Not to mention that with the support of those resources, it is hard to imagine how far he will go. However, even after 10 days, there was still no news about the person with double pupils, as if he had evaporated from the world. For a moment, the person with double pupils became the center of everyone's discussion again. Some speculated that the one with double pupils had already perished. After all, they had witnessed it with their own eyes that day in Chu City. He had used the power of a supreme treasure, and the price he paid was simply unimaginable. Some speculated that the one with the double pupils had already awakened, but because the price he paid was too high, his cultivation had dissipated, and he was no longer the high-spirited genius he once was. He could not accept this disparity, so he went into seclusion from then on. Some even said that the one with the double pupils had already become an immortal. After all, he was a demon with the talent of a 9-star, and was chosen by the immortal to go to the upper realm to become an immortal. All sorts of rumors were spreading like wildfire. Even the people from the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty didn't seem to come out to clarify. Another 10 days passed. People with double pupils seem to have become a thing of the past, and they have gradually faded from people's sight. Whenever someone talks about them, they show a look of regret. A lot of things have happened in the 3 states during these days. For example, the recent controversial Monghuang competition has attracted a lot of attention. The Monghuang competition, as the name suggests, is a trial competition held every 10 years in Monghuang. The 4 major families in Monghuang will send their strongest people to compete for the fragments of the Monghuang key. The reason why it caused such a stir was that the Monghuang family would always offer extremely generous conditions at this time to invite foreign aid from the 3 states to help them participate in the Monghuang competition. How generous were the conditions? Even those rare and precious medicines, animal bones and animal skins, their wild family had an absurd amount of them. If placed in the 3 states, each one would be a priceless treasure. Not to mention, this is just your reward. If you achieve good results in the wilderness competition, you can even enter the wilderness heart refining pool, which is never open to the public. As everyone knows, for a god king to break through to a quasi-saint, or even for a quasi-saint to break through to a saint, they must have a clear mind and not a single distracting thought before they can make the leap. But people are not saints, so how can they be free of distracting thoughts? Except for those who have cultivated the innate holy body, ordinary people must dispel distracting thoughts if they want to break through to a higher realm. The hurdle of having a clear mind has stumped countless powerful people who want to reach a higher level of cultivation. Some god kings and quasi-saints have practiced for thousands of years before they have found a glimmer of opportunity for a breakthrough. Even more have been stuck for thousands of years, with no hope of becoming a quasi-saint or saint in this lifetime. At this time, the role of the heart refining pool is reflected. As long as you enter the heart refining pool and bathe in it, you can get rid of distracting thoughts and directly reach the level of clear mind, crossing this threshold without any pressure. Therefore, at this time of year in previous years, only the quasi-saints who were stuck in a bottleneck in the 3 states would choose to participate in this competition, and the competition was extremely fierce. The competition was so intense that even those at the peak of the God King level were not even qualified for the selection and could only watch as the quasi-saints snatched their places away. Of course, those selected in the wilderness competition are the strongest among the strong. So at the beginning of each competition, wilderness will be rarely open to the public for a while, allowing the cultivators from the 3 states to enter and observe. Generally, that time is the busiest day in the wilderness, with countless cultivators from the 3 states flocking in to watch the battle to produce the strongest person in the wilderness competition. After all, this may be the only chance in their lives to be exposed to this level of battle, and they can often benefit a lot from watching one. So every time it happens, Monghuang is extremely crowded. In addition to the wilderness competition, some people also saw the strange phenomenon of 9 suns appearing in the sky in the depths of central China, which made people secretly amazed. Some people said that an ancient demon had awakened. Others said that the descendant of a hidden family was about to appear. In short, there were all kinds of opinions. However, the only thing that is certain is that the once-in-a-millennium Immortal Conference is not far away, just half a year later. By then, the real monsters in the Shintian realm will appear one by one, which makes everyone look forward to it and want to see the gap between them and the geniuses who have returned from the immortal treasure this time. Tianyuan Divine Dynasty, in the Imperial Palace. Looking at the gifts that had already piled up like a mountain in the hall, Nangong Chen felt a headache and kept wandering there until a figure arrived outside the door after a while. At this moment, all the civil and military officials in the court were silent. "My son hasn't woken up yet?" Nangong Chen asked hurriedly. Qiyun bowed slightly and shook his head. "Your Majesty, the Crown Prince, has not woken up yet. Where are the imperial doctors? Have they seen me today? What did they say?" Nangong Chen paced down, very anxious. The imperial physician has examined the prince. He said that the prince is in good health and his blood circulation is even better than that of an ordinary person. But he doesn't know why he won't wake up, Qiyun said respectfully. Hearing this, Nangong Chen kicked the stone pillar and smashed it, shouting angrily, "What a great promise. Everything is fine. How can my son not wake up? It's been 20 days. These quacks are a bunch of good-for-nothings. They can't see anything. I think they should be chopped off." Qiyun knelt on the ground, not daring to say a word. The other civil and military officials also trembled and said hurriedly, "Your Majesty, calm down." After a while, a figure in disheveled clothes suddenly appeared in the palace. Nangong Zhan's eyes lit up when he saw this. "Father, what did those people from Tianji Pavilion say? Aren't they the best at reading qi? They should have calculated when Chinner woken up, right?" Nangong Yu glanced at him and shook his head under the gaze of everyone. They said Chinner's fate was too tough, and they couldn't see through it. Even Bai Wu Dao himself came here, but he was helpless and could only see chaos. After he finished speaking, visible disappointment flashed across Nangong Zhan's eyes. Who would have thought that since Nangong Chen came back, he has not woken up yet? He blames himself so much, blaming himself for not sending people out earlier. If he had asked a strong man to pick up the enemy earlier, or if he had gone there himself, Chinner would not have fought so desperately. Alas, it was all his fault. He mistakenly believed that in the Shintian realm, a saint could protect Nangong Chen's safety. If anything happens to Nangong Chen, how will he explain to Rukin? Thinking of this, Nangong Zhan's body trembled. He sat on the dragon throne with a dull look in his eyes. Nangong Yu glanced at him, sighed, and shook his head. During this period, Nangong Zhan looked extremely haggard and even had a lot more white hair, which he saw with his own eyes. It is obvious that his son is just in his prime. It was his fault after all. He had clearly promised Rookin that he would still be there for her. But he put all the pressure on his son. Just when the atmosphere was becoming extremely depressing, a loud and excited voice suddenly rang out from outside the hall. Your Majesty, the Crown Prince, he's awake. At this moment, in the prince's palace, in the center, on the soft mattress carved with dragon patterns, lay a handsome and immortal young man. Even though the young man's eyes were peacefully closed, his angular face still exuded a mysterious nobility, like a monarch, making people dare not look directly at him. Around the mattress, there are 4 women with outstanding temperaments guarding it. Each of them is stunningly beautiful, with skin as white as cream, and each has her own characteristics. If you 3 are tired, go to sleep. I can watch over this place alone. After all, this is my husband. Seeing the 2 girls' eyelids rolling around, Suli raised her eyebrows slightly, and there seemed to be a hint of dissatisfaction in her tone. Wang Yuxuan, with a pair of panda eyes, yawned and waved her hand. I'm not sleepy. I really am not sleepy. After saying that, she fell directly onto the bed and fell asleep. Although Lu Ruyin was also a little sleepy, she supported her face with one hand, her eyelids moving up and down, and there was a hint of death in her tone. I'm not sleepy either. As for Zhou Wanner, she sat there quietly, her face expressionless. Her pair of black, gem-like eyes stared at the young man in front of her without saying a word, like a machine. Seeing this scene, Suli was upset and shook his head helplessly. She was a little confused. Was it necessary for so many people to take care of her husband? It would be fine if Zhou Wanner and Wang Yuxuan came. After all, they were Nangong Chen's personal bodyguards. But what about Lu Ruyin? Because she was saved by Nangong Chen before? After not eating or drinking for more than half a month, even she felt a little tired and could only rely on practice to relieve the fatigue. But she hadn't expected that the 2 people on the other side, who were trapped like dogs, would still stay here and refuse to leave. Were they competing with her? Who could hold out the longest? Wow, the relationship is so good. Thinking of this, she felt like laughing and glanced at Nangong Chen dimly. It seems to be saying, when you wake up, wait for me. Wang Yuxuan, who was sitting opposite, suddenly shivered in her sleep, as if she felt a cold wind blowing, and she actually buried her head directly into Nangong Chen's quilt. Seeing this, Su Lisu clenched her hands and her chest heaved slightly. She resisted the urge to drag the other person out, and kept comforting herself in her heart that she was just a personal guard, What personal? I don't know why, but the more Suli read, the more irritable she became, as if she could imagine the other person and Nangong Chen's skin touching each other. The shadow of Qi Yao standing aside was grinning from ear to ear, saying, You have come to this day. Soon, Suli calmed down, snorted coldly, and shifted her gaze to Nangong Chen. When she saw Nangong Chen's healthy complexion like that of a normal person, but no signs of waking up, she couldn't help but frown, and her ice-blue eyes were filled with anxiety. What's going on? It's been 20 days, and he still hasn't woken up. It didn't take this long last time. Could something really have happened to him? Suli didn't dare to think about what would happen to her if something happened to the other party. Don't worry, he's fine. He's just been burdened with a force he shouldn't have to bear, and it's just too much of a burden that's causing mental fatigue. Seeing this, Qiao at the side also laughed and comforted him. Suli nodded slightly when she heard this, but she was still uneasy, and her eyes were always on Nangong Chen. She had never cared so much about someone before, caring so much that she would stay by the other person's side, even if she had to go without food or water. This was the first time for her. Just as she was lost in thought, a cold voice rang out. His fingers seemed to move a little. Zhou Wanner suddenly spoke, her dark eyes fixed on one spot. Suli was stunned for a moment, and then followed the other person's gaze. Sure enough, on the mattress, Nangong Chen's bony fingers moved slightly, and even his eyelids, which had been asleep for a long time, trembled a little. Water, a slightly weak voice came out from those thin lips. Seeing this, Suli quickly stood up, her beautiful eyes lit up, and she said to the servant not far behind her, Go get some water. At the same time, the strong man who was watching silently saw this scene. His pupils suddenly shrank, and he disappeared on the spot. Wang Yuxuan and Lu Ruyin also instantly became alert and stood up suddenly. Soon, a glass of pure water was in Su Li's hand. She first swallowed a mouthful, and then, under the shocked eyes of the 3 women, she actually wanted to put it into Nangong Chen's mouth to mouth. What are you going to do? Wang Yuxuan's voice trembled a little, and she couldn't believe what she saw. Suli was stunned for a moment. She had forgotten that there was someone next to her and habitually wanted to feed the other person in this way. But she only paused for a moment, then seemed to have thought of something. With a hint of cunning in her beautiful eyes, she leaned down in front of the 3 people and poured all the water in her mouth into Nangong Chen's mouth. Let you think about this and that all day long. Chapter 372, Why do I remember that someone kissed me very happily? The three girls' minds had already gone blank, and they stared at her in a daze. Qiao was also shocked like them. After feeding, Suli calmed down, a blush appeared on her face, and she slowly parted her soft lips, pulling out a crystal-clear silk thread. No, what did she just do? Why are you looking at me? Isn't that how you feed him? Besides, he can't drink directly. Suli said this with a guilty conscience. But when she thought about the fact that she was Nangong Chen's wife, she couldn't help but become much tougher and coughed lightly. All right, stop looking at me and go back to your normal routine. This is all perfectly normal. You'll understand once you find a Taoist partner. The three women's faces stiffened when they heard this, but they all remained silent. After receiving the water, Nangong Chen's voice instantly became much clearer, and he said weakly, I want more. After saying that, Suli felt embarrassed to continue feeding him like that, but she was also worried about other women feeding him, so she could only carefully pour the water into his mouth. After a while, Nangong Chen seemed to regain consciousness, and his eyelids slowly opened. Just at this moment, two powerful figures suddenly appeared in the room. They were Nangong Yu and Nangong Zhan. Just as the women were about to bow, Nangong Yu and Nangong Zhan ignored them and quickly came to the bed. My child, you finally woke up. Good grandson, you finally woke up. Two excited voices sounded at the same time. Nangong Chen felt like he had had a very long dream. In the dream, he was in charge of Celestial Palace, admired by millions of people, and he also met many familiar faces. Met Su Li and the others, Wang Teng and the others. Faintly, he seemed to hear them calling him. Emperor, the dream is over. The dazzling light fell on his face, making him feel a little uncomfortable for a moment and frowning slightly. So, I slept for exactly 20 days? Su Li nodded seriously, looking at Nangong Chen, who was a little dazed in front of her. At this moment, there were only two of them left in the palace. As for the others, they were all driven out because their noise gave Nangong Chen a headache. The main reason why he kept Su Li was that Su Li was close to him and was also pleasing to the eye. Seeing this, Nangong Chen slowly reacted, his eyes flashing. It turns out that he has been sleeping for so long this time. It seems that he should not use the human emperor sword unless he has no other choice. Otherwise, his body will not be able to bear it. Has anything happened recently? Nangong Chen asked. This was what he cared about most. Su Li thought for a while, then said, Yes, there is, but it's not a big deal. Tell me about it. There's a wilderness competition coming up soon, and it seems like it's going to be held in a few days. Also, strange phenomena have been appearing frequently in the depths of the three continents lately. Some say it's because of some ancient monster or hidden family about to emerge, all for the Immortal Questioning Conference in half a year. Su Li said slowly, her voice clear and pleasant. The wilderness competition? What is this? Nangong Chen was completely confused. Seeing this, Su Li also patiently explained it to him. In other words, this wilderness competition is the result of the families from the far west using the heart-refining pool as an inducement to invite the quasi-saint from the three states to serve as their external aid in their fight for the wilderness key. Su Li nodded obediently and then continued. The heart-refining pool can make one's mind clear and free of distracting thoughts, allowing one to break through to a higher level of cultivation. As for the wilderness key, I'm not too sure. You can ask Grandpa. Okay, I understand. Nangong Chen nodded slightly, his eyes flashing. He hadn't expected that breaking through to the quasi-saint level required a clear mind. So that's how it is. He said that he had swallowed so many immortal medicines that day, but he couldn't even break through to the quasi-saint level. In the end, it was because he was missing this link. But for him, it seems that breaking through without any distractions is also a difficult thing. The key to the wilderness doesn't sound simple either. It seems I should be careful during the wilderness competition and ask my grandfather for advice when the time comes. What about the Immortal Questioning Conference? Nangong Chen continued, looking somewhat doubtful. The Immortal Questioning Conference is an event held every 1,000 years in the 10 realms. To put it simply, the great sects of the upper realm take advantage of the few days when the boundary wall opens to come to our 10 realms to recruit qualified disciples. Su Li thought for a while before speaking. Nangong Chen showed a look of realization. So this is what was happening. He suddenly remembered that when Prince Aolong mentioned that the Reverend Guanglong would descend to the mortal world, it seemed that it would also be half a year later. The two times just happened to overlap. So, it turns out that Prince Aolong had been noticed by the Guanglong Venerable from the upper realm a long time ago. Prince Aolong can be attracted by any trash, so it seems Venerable Guanglong is definitely not a good person either, a nest of snakes and rats. Thinking of this, Nangong Chen showed a look of contempt. However, regarding entering the upper realm, he still needed to find a chance to ask the ghost-faced woman about it. After all, she was also from the upper realm and had blood ties with him, so she would definitely tell him what to do. As for those so-called ancient monsters and descendants of hidden families, he didn't take them to heart. As long as they didn't provoke him, they would be fine. Of course, if someone provokes him, there is no guarantee that the other party will become his fresh leak. Thinking of this, Nangong Chen was even eager to try, with a gleam in his eyes. Soon, he set his eyes on his white jade nightgown, which had a lovely bow at the neck. "You put this on me?" Nangong Chen raised his eyebrows and said meaningfully. He could notice that his underwear had also been changed. Suli couldn't help but blush when she heard this, and nodded calmly. When the other party said this, she remembered that she seemed to have seen something she shouldn't have seen that day. All I can say is that the other person's figure is perfect, without a trace of fat, and the muscle lines are as smooth as if they were cut by a knife. Even there, she is very satisfied. Nangong Chen lifted her silver hair, revealing her already reddened jade phoenix ears. He leaned forward and whispered in her ear, "Why do I remember that when I was unconscious, someone kissed me very happily?" As soon as these words were spoken, Su Li's mind went blank, as if struck by lightning. Her face flushed with shame, and she wished she could crawl into a crack in the ground. She never thought that Nangong Chen would remember what happened after he fell into a coma. Chapter 373, I'm Leaving. "That's not to save you." Su Li spoke softly, her breath like orchid, her eyes dodging, not daring to look him in the eye. At this moment, Su Li was no longer a cold fairy in front of Nangong Chen, but rather like a lamb being bullied. Her beautiful eyes were misty, and it seemed as if she was about to cry in the next second. And that pair of beautiful legs wrapped in white silk were also trembling slightly, as if they were a little soft. Seeing this, Nangong Chen coughed lightly, seemed to remember something, and looked away. "Do you still remember the agreement we made in the Immortal Treasure?" Su Li was stunned for a moment, and then seemed to recall something. His face became even redder, and his silver hair looked like a steam engine, with faintly visible rising gas. Soon, she nodded, suppressing her shame. After all, no matter what, it was her own promise, and she couldn't go back on her word. Nangong Chen took in the scene before him and couldn't help swallowing. He dared to say that if any man saw this scene and had no reaction, then he was this one. It is recommended that you turn left and go directly to Kyushu Men's Hospital. Soon, Su Li crawled over, whimpering like a kitten. Her stunningly beautiful face looked blurry under her silver hair. Nangong Chen's breathing became increasingly heavy. 10,000 words omitted here. The next morning, the warm sun shone brightly. In the prince's palace, the room was in a mess, as if it was a witness to the turbulent events of the previous night. Su Li was already wearing the glass fairy dress, and the silver threads were like a cascading waterfall from the Milky Way, gently scattered on her shoulders as soft as mutton fat jade. That stunningly beautiful face had returned to its usual cold and aloof appearance, as if she were the immortal Guanghan fairy. After a night of fierce fighting, at this moment, her every move exudes a captivating charm. The youthfulness has not yet faded, but it has added a touch of maturity, just like a newly blooming red plum blossom, which is both innocence and beauty in the ice and snow, which is heart-stirring. When Nangong Chen saw this scene, his eyes became a little dazed. Su Li glanced at him, then lowered her head shyly, and quickly put the snow-white silk on her beautiful legs. Under the warm light, the jade feet seemed to sparkle with a crystal luster, small and exquisite, making people want to play with them. Thinking of the madness of last night, Su Li couldn't help but blush at her ears. She couldn't believe that the woman who was so crazy last night was herself. After a moment of silence, soon, several palace maids knocked on the door and entered the room. They did not dare to look up. They placed the nourishing porridge that His Majesty had ordered on the table and left quickly. "Want some porridge?" Nangong Chen held a bowl of lotus seed porridge, took a sip, found that it tasted quite good, and said softly. Perhaps it was because he had slept for too long without eating, so even the lotus seed porridge seemed delicious to him. After a while, he finished a bowl of it. Su Li, who was standing aside, seemed to remember something after hearing this word. She froze in place, her voice trembling. "Drink porridge?" Her mouth is so numb. "And you still want her to drink porridge?" Nangong Chen raised his eyebrows upon seeing this, his expression a little strange. Then he curled his lips and pointed at the lotus seed porridge in front of him that was emitting a fairy-like aura. "I'm talking about this porridge. This little girl is too greedy." After she finished speaking, Su Li looked over and realized that she was wrong, and her pretty face suddenly turned red. "It really is porridge. No, you help me drink it." She shook her head and refused. She had been fed by someone last night, so how could she have the appetite to eat these things? What a waste of resources. Nangong Chen smiled and held the remaining bowl in front of him. It has to be said that as one's realm becomes higher, the effect of the yin-yang dual cultivation technique becomes more apparent. After a night of practice, not only did his previous fatigue disappear, but he also filled the last flaw in the Divine King realm. Now he has reached the limit of the God King, and is only one step away from becoming a quasi-saint. By the way, after you've rested, remember to go find Grandpa. He told me to come over when you have free time. Suli seemed to remember something, looked at him, and explained softly. What do you want to talk to me about? Nangong Chen was a little confused, but still nodded slightly. Also, if you can avoid using your human emperor sword, then don't do it. It's too much of a burden on you. If you end up alone in the future, there will be no one to back you up. Wang Yuxuan and the others really care about you. You should spend more time with them in the future. They're not bad people. Suli lowered his head and continued in a calm voice. Nangong Chen raised his eyebrows when he saw that something seemed wrong with her. Why does this tone sound so much like a last will and testament? I'm leaving now. That cold voice, with an unquestionable determination, sounded again. In an instant, it was as if an invisible hand slammed open the floodgates of memory. In a trance, it seemed as if I was back to my childhood in the previous life, alone in an empty house, looking forward to the return of my parents. Outside the window, there's only the gurgling water beside the small pond, flowing on its own, just like this cold sound, monotonous and lonely. Come on, where are you going? There was a hint of panic in Nangong Chen's eyes, but he still pretended to be calm. For a moment, countless bad thoughts flashed through his mind. He thought that the other party's true identity might be the orphan daughter of a powerful person from the upper realm, who was then found by her family and asked to go back. Even after returning, he would force Suli to cut off ties with him and force her to marry someone else. Thinking of this, a cold light flashed in his eyes. What a joke. He traveled through time and space and has built-in cheats, and this kind of ridiculous plot still happened. If he encounters something unfair, the human emperor's sword in his hand will speak for him. Suli chuckled, her silver hair gleaming in the sunlight, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Why are you so serious? I'm just going there to gain experience, to find my own opportunity to become stronger. After all, if I stay in the greenhouse and always stay behind you, I won't be able to grow. Nangong Chen was stunned. He didn't expect such an answer. He immediately felt relieved. You're pretty strong now, aren't you? Why isn't second place on the myriad worlds ranking enough? You wanted to give you first place. Nangong Chen glanced at her and smiled. Suli shook her head, then looked out the window. Her eyes were like a deep pool, shimmering with light, and she remained silent for a long time. Do you know? Ever since I was born, the entire dynasty and family have placed great hopes on me. Everyone is staring at me, and everyone wants me, the only one with 9th grade talent, to hold up the world. Su Li's voice was soft, but it carried a hint of indescribable fatigue, and every word seemed to be squeezed out from the deepest part of her heart. Chapter 374, Su Li's monologue. But when I was little, I actually hated practicing, but there was nothing I could do. The scolding from my clansmen, my father's constant sighs, and my sister's constant calls a sister all weighed heavily on me, like invisible pressure. Su Li lowered her eyes slightly, and her long eyelashes cast a shadow on her eyelids. I could only isolate myself and practice desperately. I couldn't have the same childhood filled with laughter and joy as others. My childhood was all about practice. Other than that, there was nothing else. Just when I thought my life was like a stagnant pool, with no end in sight, and only cultivation, you just happened to appear. When he said this, Su Li's ice blue eyes suddenly lit up, and he continued. You are like an elusive butterfly, suddenly breaking into my dead life and disrupting everything. When I first met you, you shocked me by saying you wanted to marry me. At that time, I thought you were just like any other suitor, so I just ruthlessly rejected you and stopped pursuing you. But who would have thought that you would actually threaten me with your family? You acted so coldly, but I had no way to stop you. To be honest, I thought you were an unforgivable villain at that time. I hated you so much. When she said this, Su Li glanced at him quietly, with a hint of anger in her eyes. Nangong Chen smiled awkwardly. He couldn't explain it clearly. Was he supposed to say that it was because of the system? However, when he heard that Su Li had such a miserable childhood, he couldn't help but feel distressed. He could not imagine that the goddess Su, who looked so glamorous in front of others, actually lived such a dark life behind the scenes. At that time, the other person was only a few years old, just like the age of a blooming flower, but he had to be so sensible and take on everything. It's no wonder that the other person's personality is so dull. Nangong Chen took a deep breath and did not interrupt her. Go on. Su Li opened her heart and continued. When my father received the broken mirror pill, he couldn't hide the joy in his eyes. But in front of me, he had to feign composure, pretending not to care, and said seriously, this is just a small thing. She imitated her father's tone, a faint smile playing on her lips. As for my mother, She wiped her tears and said she felt sorry for me. But she couldn't let go of the gold, silver, and jewelry she sent me. And she kept muttering, "These things can ensure that Lear will have no worries for the rest of her life." Suli shook her head helplessly. "My sister seems to have gained better resources for cultivation because of this." Seeing her happy face, "I actually feel that this marriage might not be so bad." There was a hint of relief in her tone. "I thought marrying you would be the beginning of a nightmare." Suli frowned slightly. "After all, people in the capital say that you are an out-and-out playboy and a disgrace to Tianyuan Mansion. They say that you only have second-grade talent, but you idle away your time all day and often hang out in brothels." She snorted softly. "Even though I hated you at that time, I still felt a little envious when I heard that you were able to grow up carefree. At least you didn't have to bear so much pressure." A trace of loneliness flashed in her eyes. "Later, we got married, and you suddenly awakened your double pupils without any warning. Your aptitude surpassed the 9th rank, making you even more powerful than me." Suli's eyes were filled with surprise and curiosity. "Back then, you were full of mystery in my eyes, like an unsolvable puzzle. Although you married me, you didn't confine me to Tianyuan Mansion. Instead, you gave me freedom and treated me with great respect. You never forced me to practice cultivation, and you even secretly stuffed a lot of cultivation resources into my storage ring. I know all this." A gentle smile appeared on Su Li's lips. "At first, I thought you were just pretending, but during my time in Tianyuan Mansion, I found out I was wrong." Her eyes were full of trust and dependence. "You respect your elders, treat servants well, and never bully others. Everyone in Tianyuan Mansion seems to like you very much, and I have gradually changed my opinion of you." Su Li nodded slightly, his eyes full of admiration. "Later, in the 9 Heavens secret realm, you came to save me at all costs. Although I don't know why you cared about me so much. At that moment, my heart was beating fast." Her cheeks flushed slightly, as if she remembered the nervousness and touching feeling at that time. "When we were in Xinzong, you told me seriously that I didn't need to hunt aliens like others, and all I had to do was watch my performance." Su Li's eyes flashed. "I don't know where your confidence comes from, but I just believe in you inexplicably." Her tone was full of determination. "I was incredibly happy during the time I spent with you in Xinzong. I swear, that was definitely the happiest time of my life." Su Li's eyebrows and eyes are curved, as charming as the bright moon. "It allowed me to experience a different life. I no longer had to worry about cultivation or about what others thought of me. All I had to do was please myself. It was as if all my burdens and worries had instantly dissipated. It was you who taught me to be a real person and made me understand what liking and love are." Su Li's eyes were gentle and firm, looking straight at Nangong Chen. "Like is the uncontrollable, wild beating of my heart every time I look into your eyes. Love is that for you. I am willing to change myself." The cold voice suddenly became powerful. "When I saw you swallowing elixirs and holy medicines time and time again so that we could survive and fighting desperately with that red-robed envoy, I finally understood. It turns out that the burden I carried and those annoying gazes didn't disappear, but instead shifted to you." A mist appeared in Su Li's eyes, and her voice trembled slightly. "So, I don't want to be a burden to you anymore. I want to go out and explore the world. I want to become stronger. I want to stay with you until the end and see the prosperous and splendid world you talk about." Su Li stared into Nangong Chen's eyes and spoke every word seriously. After he finished speaking, Nangong Chen's heart was in turmoil, and he couldn't calm down for a long time. Is this really something Su Li would say? Has the little robot evolved to version 2.0? After a long moment, Nangong Chen raised his eyebrows and said meaningfully, "Not bad. You can say so many sensible things. I'm very pleased. It seems that you're no longer the dull and incompetent goose you used to be. Since you have made your choice, then go for it. Go for it boldly. Your husband supports you." He knew that there was an ancient being behind Su Li, and he believed that the other party's feelings were also influenced by that person. Since that person thinks it's okay, then what other opinions can he have? Nangong Chen had actually expected this day to come. After all, with Su Li's personality and the pride of being the destined heroine, she would definitely not choose to lie down under the protection of others. But when this day finally arrived, he still felt a little emotional and reluctant, as if he was about to send away the daughter he had raised for many years. Chapter 375. Su Li leaves, 3 women eavesdrop. After hearing this, Su Li's lips curled up slightly, revealing a happy smile. She knew that Nangong Chen would definitely support her. "But you were wrong about one thing just now." Suddenly, Nangong Chen changed the subject, and his handsome face gradually became gloomy. Su Li's face changed slightly, and she became a little flustered, her bare hands tightly grasping the hem of her skirt. Did she say something wrong and make Nangong Chen angry? Nangong Chen slowly walked up to Su Li, raised his hand, lightly touched her forehead with his slender fingers, and said softly, "Remember, you have never been a burden to me. How can the person you love be a burden?" After he finished speaking, Su Li's nose felt sore, and his eyes moved like autumn water, as if mist was floating out, emitting a crystal halo under the dim light. The next moment, she gently hugged Nangong Chen. "Thank you. You're about to leave, and you're still crying?" Nangong Chen smiled and gently wiped her nose. "Won't you give me some money if I cry for a while?" Su Li glared at him with her red eyes, and then she sobbed softly, whimpering like a crying kitten. For some reason, she had a premonition that after this separation, it would take a long time before they would meet again. Here. There was a hint of doting in Nangong Chen's brows. "That's more like it." Su Li muttered something, then turned around and said softly, "The next time we meet will be in half a year. By then, we will meet at the top of the Immortal Questioning Conference." "Good." Nangong Chen nodded, his eyes flashing. "Half a year? That's pretty fast. By the way, don't find me a few more sisters in the next 6 months, or I'll make sure you don't suffer when I come back." Then, Su Li seemed to remember something, snorted coldly, and warned. If she hadn't asked, she wouldn't have known that on that day in the Chucheng Void, Chu Yin and Shi Meng had come specifically to inquire about Nangong Chen's injuries. Wow, what a great charm. She glanced at Nangong Chen's crotch. If she didn't need it, she would really like to chop that philandering thing into pieces. Suddenly, Nangong Chen felt a chill in his crotch. He glanced at Su Li and said helplessly, "Do you think I look like that kind of person?" Seeing that he was scared, Su Li raised the corners of her mouth slightly, and a look of pleasure flashed in her beautiful eyes. She also knew that Nangong Chen was such an outstanding man that she would not be the only one in his life. Of course, she was also very glad to be his first. This warning was just to scare him, so that he would be less obsessed with women when he was young and focus more on cultivation. Otherwise, if she really found so many sisters, if there was a fire in the harem, she would not be able to manage it. "Goodbye." Su Li waved her hand and stepped on the jade sword. After saying that, he turned into a stream of light and left without looking back. She was afraid that she would not be able to bear to leave. "In half a year, it will be my turn to save you," she murmured where Nangong Chen couldn't hear. "Wait until the prince's palace is quiet." Nangong Chen stood there, looking leisurely at the direction where Su Li left, his eyes flickering, and it was unknown what he was thinking. After a long time, he said calmly, "Come out." As soon as he finished speaking, 3 beautiful figures slowly walked out of the palace gate. "Master, you are amazing. You have discovered all this." Wang Yuxuan smiled, revealing a pair of small fangs, and her bright eyes were full of luster. In her inky black hair, there are several delicate yellow flowers, which move with the wind, adding a bit of charm and agility. On the left side stood a girl in a black dress with no expression on her face. The breeze blew by, and the hem of her skirt swayed slightly, but remained motionless, making her look like a princess from a bygone dynasty. Those obsidian eyes looked at Nangong Chen with the same curiosity, without noticing the fallen leaves in her hair. As for the last one, she was neither pretending to be stupid like Wang Yuxuan, nor as calm as Zhou Waner. Her bare hands tightly grasped the hem of her skirt, and her pretty face showed a guilty look. Beneath the jade-green fairy dress were a pair of trembling jade feet, and the skin on her thighs was delicate, snow-white, and plump. Lu Rian couldn't understand why the 2 people who were eavesdropping were still so shameless, even though they were caught by the real person. Nangong Chen glanced at them and shook his head, as if he had already expected it. He calmly lifted the kettle and poured water on the spiritual flowers beside him, his eyes calm. "If you want to eavesdrop, at least set up a concealed formation. What are you doing hiding behind the door? Tell me, what do you want from me?" He was a little surprised. He didn't expect Lu Ruyan to come to see him. Is missing the master a thing? A hint of cunning flashed across Wang Yuxuan's lively eyes. She knew that Su Li had just left, and her master must need someone to accompany him at this time. Nangong Chen ignored her words, just glanced at her, and said, "What's wrong with your panda eyes? And that Lu Ruyan, why does she look so half-dead? She didn't seem so weak the last time I saw her." "That's not all. During the time the master was unconscious, Waner and I stayed by his side all night, staying awake all night." Hearing this, Wang Yuxuan said with some grievance, her eyes flashing as she spoke, looking pitiful. She had tried to lighten her dark circles, so how come her master still noticed? And me? Seeing that Wang Yuxuan didn't bring her with her, Lu Ruyan gritted her teeth and hurriedly said, "Oh, why are you here too?" Nangong Chen nodded slightly at Wang Yuxuan, then looked at Lu Ruyan, seeming a little confused. After she finished speaking, Wang Yuxuan also glanced at her and agreed. "Yes, why are you here too? We are the master's personal guards. So who are you?" Right. As the eldest sister of the Tianyuan sword sect, the prince has fainted. Can I come over to offer my condolences?" Lu Ruyan hesitated, and suddenly her almond-shaped eyes lit up. You! Seeing that she had found a reason, Wang Yuxuan's beautiful eyes widened. Hearing this, Nangong Chen nodded slightly and did not expose her lie. He looked at them and said softly, "You have been guarding for 20 days. It's been hard work." It's not hard, it's not hard. I'm already very happy to be with my master." Wang Yuxuan shook her head, her eyes like stars, and she moved slightly closer, took a deep breath of Nangong Chen's scent, and then looked obsessed. "I haven't seen you for a few months. I miss you so much, master." Zhou Wanner shook her head slightly to show the other party that she was not tired. Similarly, her eyes were always on Nangong Chen's face from beginning to end. As for Lu Ruyan, she blushed for a long time before she uttered, "It's not hard for me either." Of course, she couldn't say anything as explicit as Wang Yuxuan's. "You can use these things." Nangong Chen coughed lightly, then remembered something and flicked his sleeves. In an instant, a bunch of skills and weapons fell in front of the three women. When the three girls saw this, their pupils suddenly shrank. This is clearly an immortal skill and an immortal weapon. Pick what you like. I have something else to do, so I'll leave first." After taking out these things, Nangong Chen said goodbye to the three people. He did not forget what Su Li had asked him to do before, asking him to go find his grandfather. Under the shocked gazes of the three women, Nangong Chen disappeared on the spot. Chapter 376, Wilderness Competition Fermentation. At the same time, in Xintian territory, as the wilderness competition intensified, more and more people focused their attention on this grand quasi-saint competition. The 3 states of foreign aid selected by the 4 great families of the wilderness naturally attracted everyone's attention and could be said to be the focus among the focuses. As the champion of the previous wilderness competition, the Black Wind clan released another bombshell news to the world in this wilderness competition. That is, Xiang Kunlun, the supreme elder of the Yuxiao Sword sect, has come out to participate in the wilderness competition as the external aid of the Black Wind clan. As soon as this news was released, it immediately caused a lot of discussion among people. You have to know that Xiang Kunlun is no small figure. He once fought against 4 quasi-saints alone and did not lose. He also assisted the Sword Saint Lord in killing the great demon in the Saint realm. His strength can be said to be among the top among the quasi-saints. Some people even said that as long as the saint does not appear, Xiang Kunlun will be invincible. In short, the Black Wind clan chose Xiang Kunlun as their foreign aid this time, and they're definitely aiming to win the championship. Not long after, the other 2 families in Menghuang also released the news. Yang Zhen, the great elder of the Wanfa Lei sect, will fight as an external aid of the Tiyun clan. As for the Feather clan, they invited Su Rue, an elder from the Tianjin Holy Land. These 2 people also have great backgrounds. Yang Zhen from the Wanfa Lei sect once killed 2 great monsters of the same realm in the secret realm, and even when facing a half-step saint, he was able to gain the upper hand. All I can say is that if Yang Zhen faced Xiang Kunlun, it would be hard to say who would win or lose. This also made the wild competition suddenly confusing. As for Su Rue, the elder of the Tianjin Holy Land, he was slightly inferior to the previous 2. It was not that the other party was weak, but as a strong man of the formation lineage, he was naturally not as good as other quasi-saints in a one-on-one battle. Of course, if Su Rue is paired with any quasi-saint, he will be an excellent assist, enough to achieve the effect of 1 + 1 being greater than 3. Soon, everyone in the world knew clearly the information about the foreign players selected by the 3 companies. The only tribe that has not yet released any news of foreign aid is the Nangong tribe. Everyone was used to this. After all, in previous years, the Wuling clan was extremely confident and never used external aid. They only sent strong people from their own family. Of course, the losses were getting worse and worse. Some people even said that the Wuling tribe was just here to run as a runner-up and to be at the bottom of the table. No matter whether the opponent had external aid or not, they could not escape the final fate. Therefore, people did not pay too much attention to the Nangong tribe. Their main attention was focused on the Black Wind tribe and the Tiyun tribe. For a time, the westernmost land was in an uproar, with people coming and going, and it suddenly became lively. Countless cultivators wanted to come and see this wilderness competition. After all, the battle between strong people will definitely benefit them a lot, and it is something they can see without spending any money. Even some geniuses in the 3 states went to the wilderness competition for the purpose of learning. This also directly caused the popularity of the wilderness competition to reach a peak. However, not long after, another shocking event came out from central China. The Tianji Pavilion recently released the latest list of geniuses. In the list, the names of the man with double pupils and the goddess Su were ranked 1st and 2nd. This also caused an instant craze. Everyone couldn't help but start to inquire about the news of the person with double pupils. After all, almost a month had passed, and there was really no news about the person with double pupils. However, they were soon disappointed. Even the cultivators in eastern Shenzhou had not heard any news about the people with double pupils from the Tianyuan divine dynasty recently. They have no idea whether the person with double pupils has woken up or is dead or alive. The only thing we know is that someone saw the ice phoenix goddess Su Li, and there are signs that she is heading south recently. The fact that the ice phoenix goddess was alone had caused countless people to talk about it. Some people speculated that the man with double pupils might have really encountered an accident. Otherwise, he would not have let the goddess Su go out alone. Usually, the two of them stay together. Some people also said that the person with double pupils might have awakened long ago, but his injuries were too severe and his cultivation regressed. He has been living in seclusion in the Tianyuan divine dynasty ever since, and is unwilling to show up in front of the world. But more people tend to believe that those with double pupils have not yet woken up. After all, many people saw it with their own eyes that day. The man with double pupils, at the level of God King, burst out with a power that did not belong to him. So the price is too high, and it is normal to be in a coma for a longer time. Some even said that the man with double pupils was just faking his death in order to avoid the Asking Immortals conference in half a year. After all, everyone knew that during the Asking Immortals conference, the Mad Dragon Venerable would definitely come down to the mortal world to seek revenge on the man with double pupils. Some people believe this statement, while others do not. Everyone has different attitudes. The most outrageous thing is that someone joked that those with double pupils have already started preparing for the wild competition and will participate in a wild competition at the level of a God King. Many people scoffed at this, laughed it off, and did not take it seriously at all. After all, you don't even know whether the other person is awake or not. If the other person really wants to go, how could there be no news at all? Of course, Nangong Chen, who was far away in the Tianyuan divine dynasty, naturally didn't know about these remarks. Chapter 377, The Blood God Cult. In the palace, the steady footsteps gradually grew louder. Nangong Chen, who was sitting on the dragon chair handling official business, raised his eyebrows when he saw the person coming and said, "She's gone. Leave." Nangong Chen nodded slightly, picked up a chair, sat down on it, and crossed his legs. He also took the plate of spiritual fruits used by the emperor and picked up a few. Seeing him so heartless, Nangong Chen laughed. When his mother left, he cried so hard that he drank every day to drown his sorrows. This guy is really not a human being, so unlike him, good boy, you really don't treat me as a human being. You can take my spiritual fruit just like that. Nangong Chen said unhappily, "You know what? This fruit is quite sweet." Nangong Chen ignored him, feeling a bit lost in thought. "All right, I know why you're here, but your grandfather is in seclusion, so I'll cut to the chase and tell you what he wants to tell you." Seeing that he was about to get down to business, Nangong Chen spit out the seed and looked at him. "Go ahead. One is about the blood god cult, and the others who attacked and killed you that day. After your grandfather's interrogation, the 3 red-robed envoys also honestly confessed everything. You should be aware of the blood god cult, right?" Nangong Chen glanced at him. "I know a thing or two," Nangong Chen said lightly. He only knew that the blood god cult had a headquarters in the upper realm, and that it had a very long history, seemingly dating back tens of millions of years. Apart from that, he knew nothing else. The blood god cult has influence in all of the 9 heavens and 10 realms. Its headquarters is in the 9 heavens, and its branches are in the 10 realms. At the same time, the blood god cult, whether it's its headquarters or branches, has a hierarchy from low to high. The higher you go, the stronger your status and the more powerful you become. They are, respectively, blood slaves, believers for seats, cult leaders, priests, and cult leaders. The red-robed man who attacked and killed you that day was a cult leader from the lower realm. Nangong Chen said slowly, his eyes dim. As for why they killed you, they also explained. It is said that the upper realm issued a death order. Not only our Xintian realm, but all the Xianzong Tianjiao in the 10 realms are to be killed this time. So, initially, they chose to attack the Xintian territory, which had infiltrated the immortal hidden realm, and sent 2 of the 4, Wanxin and Liang Gui. You should be familiar with these 2. After all, they both died at your hands. Their original plan was to have these 2 kill all of you geniuses in the immortal treasure, but who would have thought that something unexpected would happen and a monster like you would appear? Not only did you kill the other domain's geniuses, you even killed 4 of them. This made the blood god cult extremely angry, so they made a new plan and joined forces with that chaotic person to kill you. But they didn't expect that in the second round, Wanxin, whom they had placed such high hopes on, would die at your hands. This forced them to change their plans once again. That is, let Mou, one of the 4, go find Fundao of the Sun God Palace and join forces with him to destroy the Chu family's 7-star formation. Then let the blood god cult from other domains come to support them. In order to take this matter seriously, their headquarters even sent a powerful person, the red-robed envoy. Nangong Chen's face showed a look of realization. and then a cold light flashed in his eyes. If he hadn't had the human emperor's sword given to him by the system, Uncle Chi, Su Li, and the others might have been in danger. This time, he almost used up all the holy medicines and immortal medicines he had obtained from the immortal treasure. He will definitely destroy the blood god cult in the future and expose all their secrets. Of course, there's also Fendao. Don't let him know where he is hiding. Chapter 378 Zhuing. You don't know. Go on. Nangong Chen took a deep breath. Nangong Zhan glanced at him, as if he had already anticipated his reaction, because not only him, but he also felt the same way when he heard it that day. Only the blood god cult could create such a dead end. If it weren't for his son's efforts to turn the tide, everything might have been over. He continued, and the red-robed cleric, although he's a cleric in the branch, in fact, at their headquarters, he is just one of the millions of believers. He also said that even though we won this time and the branch suffered heavy losses, once their headquarters learns of this, they will send even more powerful people to kill you. After saying that, he glanced at Nangong Chen, as if he wanted to see him panic, but unfortunately, there was no expression on Nangong Chen's face. Nangong Zhan thought he was pretending to be calm and consoled him. It's okay, you don't have to be too scared. At least if the sky falls, we tall people will hold it up. If the tall people are gone, you still have your mother. Nangong Chen nodded slightly and said perfunctorily. He was not afraid. As long as no true immortal appeared, he would not die. He also did not believe that the Blood God Church was so stupid as to send a true immortal to kill him. It was simply a fantasy. He was worried about what was behind him. After all, his sect leader robe could only protect him. Okay, let's talk about something cheerful. Seeing him like this, Nangong Zhan thought he was still pretending, so he changed the subject and looked into the distance. Do you know how many saints were in the sky above Chu City that day? Nangong Chen nodded slightly. He still remembered that although those three were a little weak, at least they were good at heart and had struggled to hold on for so long. Nangong Zhan continued. That day, your grandfather was happy to see you still alive, so he gave 3 favors to others. 2 of them were not used yet, but 1 was used. Can you guess who it was? Nangong Chen shook his head. How could he possibly guess this? He didn't even know who was who that day. All I know is that the one who is about to die seems to be the ancestor of the Li family. After all, when he came out of the immortal hiding place, Li Qixin and Li Muxiu shouted so loudly that it is hard not to know. As for the other 2, one used a sword and the other seemed to be using a formation. He really didn't know them. It's not the one who uses the sword. The saint who uses the sword is called Zhao Lei, the Holy Lord of the Heavenly Sword Holy Land. It's the old man who uses the formation. His name is Chun Song, and he is the ancestor of the Heavenly Formation Holy Land. Nangong Zhan seemed to know what he was thinking and said slowly, the ancestor of the Heavenly Array Holy Land? What does he want from us? Nangong Chen was a little surprised and asked in confusion. It's nothing. Didn't you show off your formation in that immortal treasure? That old man insisted on sending his granddaughter to you so that she could learn from you. Nangong Zhan shook his head and smiled. Seeing that he was a little confused, Nangong Zhan's eyes were deep, and he continued, that guy's granddaughter is incredible. Even I have heard of her. Nangong Chen's eyes became even more curious. His father had actually heard of it, which meant that the other party had some ability. Zhuing, you haven't even heard of Zhuing. She's a genius in formations that appears once in 1,000 years, and she's also a stunningly beautiful woman. She's highly sought after by all factions. Someone once asked her to draw a formation for a whopping 100 immortal crystals. Seeing that he still hadn't figured out who it was, Nangong Zhan twitched his lips and spoke. Chapter 379, Are these all immortal weapons? Zhuing. Nangong Chen looked puzzled. He had never heard of it before. Nangong Zhan showed a lewd smile, then looked around and carefully took out a scroll from his arms. I've known for a long time that you don't know anything. Here, this is a portrait your father found especially for you. The woman in the painting was leaning against the elegant pavilion. She had delicate features. Her black hair was piled high and pinned with a golden phoenix hairpin. She looked very dignified and elegant. Her upper body was dressed in a black and gold phoenix tail skirt, revealing her shoulders slightly, her skin as white as snow, her breasts standing proudly, her curves exquisite, and her figure just right. Just one glance brings out an indescribable charm. Are you using this to bribe cadres? Nangong Chen glanced at it and said helplessly, just tell me whether you want her or not. She came to our divine dynasty a while ago and is now living in the guest room of the imperial palace. If you want her, I will call her here today. Nangong Zhan clapped his hands and said with wide eyes, yes. After thinking about it, Nangong Chen did not refuse. He suddenly thought that he only had the entry-level formation intention, but had not even seen some of the most basic formation charts. The only formation he knew was the 9 Sky Star formation awarded by the system. However, it is better not to set up that thing unless it is absolutely necessary. It is really not something that an ordinary family can afford. You know, when he first set up the 9 Sky Star array in the Immortal Treasure, it cost him a lot of immortal crystals, which made him very distressed. Of course, it would be great if there was a ready-made formation master for him to learn from. What's more, the other party is from the Holy Land of Heavenly Formations, and he should have the most advanced formations in the entire Xintian domain for him to observe. Since he can get it for free, why not do it? I knew you were into this. Nangong Chen chuckled and showed a look that showed that he understood everything. By the way, there's some good things that need you to keep. Nangong Chen spoke, his eyes flickering, as if he remembered something. He had forgotten that most of the things in the inheritance of Xianxian sect that he obtained from the Immortal Treasure were of no use to him, and they could just be used to enhance the strength of the Divine Dynasty. Nangong Chen looked suspicious when he heard this, and said, "Good stuff? Your father have lived for so long, and have seen all sorts of good things. How could I possibly be interested in the little things you found in the Immortal Treasure? All right, take it out. I want to see what you got from that Immortal Treasure. Since you are still young and don't know how to identify magic weapons, I will teach you today." Seeing this, Nangong Chen raised his eyebrows slightly, and his mind moved. The next moment, hundreds of weapons and skills all smashed towards Nangong Chen. For a moment, the entire central part of the palace turned into a mountain of books and a sea of soldiers, and Nangong Chen was buried in it. Damn it! You have no martial ethics. What the hell has drowned me? After a long while, Nangong Chen poked his head out from the sea of books and soldiers, cursing. Then, when he saw the scene in front of him, his pupils suddenly shrank. He grabbed the long knife next to him, looked at it carefully, and then sniffed it closely, his breathing becoming increasingly rapid. This immortal weapon. Rise. As soon as Nangong Chen uttered a word, the mountain of books and the sea of soldiers slowly rose up as if they had received an order, floating and circling in the void. Chapter 380. The Filial Son, Nangong Chen. For a moment, every weapon technique could be seen extremely clearly. This is not an immortal weapon. It is an imperial weapon. Nangong Chen slowly picked up the knife that was just in Nangong Zhan's hand and said calmly. The next moment, the flame thunder sword burst into divine power. Lightning flashed, flames intertwined, and transformed into 2 giant dragons surrounding the sword, emitting a terrifying sword intent. Even Nangong Chen was terrified after feeling it, as if he was on the brink of death. There are 10 more imperial weapons like this, but 6 are damaged, leaving only 4 intact. Nangong Chen said slowly, fixing his eyes on the 10 weapons hovering at the top. What about the others? Nangong Chen looked at the hundreds of weapons under the 10 imperial weapons with a trembling voice. As you can see, they are all immortal weapons and holy weapons. Among them, there are 120 immortal weapons and a full 1,050 saintly weapons. Nangong Chen said lightly. After receiving this affirmative answer, Nangong Chen felt like he was about to faint. He must have heard it right. There were more than 100 immortal weapons and more than 1,000 saint weapons. However, he still suppressed his shock and looked at the sea of books on the other side. Everywhere he looked, he could see the extraordinary nature of the martial arts. So what are these? These are, of course, the techniques. I've counted them all. There are 600 holy techniques, 400 immortal techniques, and 5 imperial techniques. As for whether there are any damaged ones, I don't know. Nangong Chen continued. After hearing this, Nangong Chen was shocked at first. Then his face was full of disbelief. He sat there paralyzed, muttering, It's sent. How about it? Does someone still want to teach me how to identify it? Nangong Chen raised the corner of his mouth. Nangong Chen then put on a flattering smile and pushed the dragon chair behind Nangong Chen. Come, Chen, sit down. You must be tired of standing. Let your father give you a massage. Nangong Chen didn't hesitate and sat directly on the dragon chair, crossed his legs, and pointed to the empty teacup beside him, frowning slightly. Look at this tea. However, before he could finish his words, Nangong Chen instantly came to him, picked up the teapot, filled the teacup with tea, and then handed it to him. He patted his head and said with some self-blame, Look at me, my memory is bad when I get old. I can even forget this. Ha ha ha. Nangong Chen's mouth was about to be suppressed. He finished the drink in one gulp, then touched his shoulders and stretched his neck. Look at this shoulder. Upon hearing this, Nangong Chen rushed over and massaged his shoulders. Soon, his true intentions were exposed, and he cautiously asked, So these are all for me? Nangong Chen said nothing, just nodded at the teacup. It was not until Nangong Chen refilled his tea that he coughed lightly to moisten his throat. No, a crisp and direct word rang out. I knew it wasn't in vain that I raised you this old. You're so filial. Nangong Chen smiled, but before he could even utter the word shun, the smile on his face suddenly froze after hearing what Nangong Chen said. What did you say? No. Nangong Chen scored twice. After he finished speaking, Nangong Zhan's expression changed instantly. His face flushed red, and he wanted to push away the dragon chair he was sitting on, but it didn't move at all. I knew that you, a filial son, really have bad intentions. Chapter 381. A brother and sister surnamed Qing want to see you. Nangong Chen seemed to have expected this. He activated the dragon elephant prison-suppressing power, steady as a rock, and said calmly, "Why are you so anxious? I said I wouldn't give it to you, but I didn't say I wouldn't let you take it. You should find a safe place to keep these things and use them to enhance the strength of the divine dynasty. I believe you should be able to do it. As for the imperial and immortal weapons among the weapons, try not to touch them. They are not suitable for your use at this stage. Without the spiritual power I provide, you will easily explode and die. As for the saint artifacts, we can send a batch to trustworthy people. As for the techniques, we can promote some of the basic techniques, but we must strictly control them. Only those of us in Tianyuan can learn them, and then only the basics. If they want to cultivate the second half, they must exchange their merits for it." As soon as these words came out, Nangong Zhan put away his smile. His face turned serious, and he said with a headache, "I know all this, but you really want me to keep these things?" Nangong Chen shook his head. "If they were on me, if something happened to me, these things would be gone. Besides, I've taken away everything useful to me. The rest might as well be kept in the divine dynasty to improve your strength." He knew that these things were entrusted by Chu Wanli to revitalize the Xinxian sect, but he also had to be realistic. How could he gain a foothold in the upper realm when he was alone and helpless? It would be better to make the Tianyuan divine dynasty strong first, and let the rich drive the poor. At worst, the Tianyuan divine dynasty can split into a sect called Xinxian sect and let others join in. After all, this is also a revitalization. Nangong Zhan had a headache, but still nodded. "Well, since you said so, I feel embarrassed to refuse. You didn't really dig up other people's ancient tombs to get these things, did you?" There was some doubt in his eyes. Nangong Chen nodded slightly. It was almost the same. After all, they all came from the earth. Seeing this, Nangong Zhan was horrified. It was unheard of that someone was so lucky that he could dig up such an ancient tomb in the immortal treasure. If Nangong Zhan knew that these are the foundation of a top Taoist sect in the upper realm, he would probably be so scared that he would be speechless. Thinking of this, Nangong Chen did not reveal the whole matter of Xinxian sect. "I can't even imagine how powerful our Tianyuan divine dynasty will be in the future if we have the support of these resources and the imperial dragon vein," Nangong Zhan murmured, and then he looked at Nangong Chen seriously. "I will keep these things safe, don't worry. Unless I die, no one can steal any of them. As for the specific details, I will discuss with your grandfather to see how to implement them." Nangong Chen nodded slightly. He still trusted the other party's governing ability. After all, he had been in charge of Tianyuan Mansion for such a long time and managed it in an orderly manner. "Oh, there's one more thing I forgot to tell you." As the two were silent, Nangong Zhan seemed to have thought of something and spoke slowly. "When you were unconscious, a few people said they were from Central Shenzhou and wanted to see you for something." "Oh." Nangong Chen was a little confused. "Zhong Shenzhou, someone wants to see him?" Among them was a brother and sister, both with the surname Qing. Nangong Zhan continued to add. Chapter 382. 4 people enter the palace to meet the emperor. After he finished speaking, Nangong Chen's face changed slightly. He remembered, weren't these Qing Yu and Qing Fan? Seeing him like this, Nangong Zhan knew that he knew them, and said slowly, "Why? Do you want to see them now? I have settled them in the palace. Call them over." Nangong Chen said softly. He was a little curious about what would happen. Nangong Zhan nodded, then waved his hand, and a black shadow flashed past his head. When Nangong Chen saw this scene, his eyes were stunned. After such a long time, he didn't even notice that there was someone above his head. "Don't worry, this is our divine dynasty's Deadpool. He won't reveal our affairs," Nangong Zhan said slowly. At the same time, the group was heading non-stop towards the center of the palace. "Sister, why did King Tianyuan suddenly call us over? Could it be that the young master has woken up?" Qing Fan whispered as he looked around curiously. "I don't know either. Be careful with your words and actions. Don't break the rules in front of this kind of person." Qing Yu shook his head and said seriously. Upon hearing this, Qing Fan nodded heavily and swallowed secretly. To be honest, this was their first time meeting such a distinguished figure, not to mention the young master's father. They couldn't imagine how terrifying the being who ruled the Tianyuan divine dynasty would be. As for the 2 people on the side, they were not in a much better situation either. "Grandpa, I'm afraid." Looking at the heavily guarded surroundings and the bright and beautiful palace, Lon Xian felt a hint of timidity rising from the bottom of his heart. Hearing his granddaughter's voice transmission, Lon Mo hurriedly comforted her. "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. It's just a one-time visit to the palace. The other party is not a scourge or a beast, and they won't eat us." After saying that, Lan Xian nodded obediently. Lan Mo looked around and sighed. Coming to the Tianyuan divine dynasty, these past few days had completely refreshed his worldview. He had never felt such a rich spiritual energy before, nor had he ever seen so many powerful people on the streets. It is no exaggeration to say that this place is a blessed land. No wonder such a terrifying monster was born here. Of course, he was suddenly told that he had to go to the palace to see the emperor. In fact, he was also very unsure because he wanted to see the prince, not the Tianyuan king. But for some reason, the Tianyuan king wanted to see them. For a moment, many different thoughts flashed through his mind. Soon, the four people with different thoughts and feelings saw the magnificent and dignified palace in front of them. "Come in." A calm and gentle voice suddenly sounded. After he finished speaking, Qing Yu and Qing Fan's eyes lit up instantly, and they looked at each other. Isn't this the young master's voice? As for the two people from the Wuling tribe standing nearby, they just felt that the voice was somewhat familiar, as if they had heard it somewhere before. The four of them stepped in one after another. Then they saw the owner of the voice. The young man in snow-white clothes sat upright on the dragon throne, his eyes like stars, with an immortal air, and there was an astonishing aura between his pupils. Beside him stood a middle-aged man in a black dragon robe. When the four saw the figure in the snow-covered clothes, their eyes lit up instantly. Qing Yu was even more excited and asked, "Sir, are you healed?" But the moment she said it, she realized that she had lost her composure. No, it was probably a slip of the tongue. Chapter 383, The Key to the Wilderness. She wanted to change her words immediately, but she saw Nangong Chen waving his hand slightly. Her heart warmed, and she said softly, "Almost well. I didn't expect that the two siblings from the Qing family would come from so far away. Zhong Shenzhou is quite far away from here." He appreciated the other party's kindness. After he finished speaking, Qing Yu and Qing Fan nodded heavily, staring at the young man on the stage with extremely fiery eyes. On the side, the reaction of the grandfather and grandson was not much better. Lan Mo's eyes were filled with horror. He was a quasi-saint, yet he felt such a terrifying sense of oppression from a genius. As for Lan Xian, her beautiful eyes were stunned for a while, and she slowly reacted. Her eyes flashed as she looked at Nangong Chen. This was the first time she had seen the legendary boy so closely. After observing him for a while, he seemed different from what she had imagined. First of all, I thought about the other person's personality. I thought such a stunning person would be the kind of person who is arrogant and looks down on others, but I didn't expect that he would be so gentle and elegant, making people feel like they were in the spring breeze. And the other person's appearance was too extraordinary, extremely handsome and ethereal. She had never seen such a man in the world. With just one glance, Lan Xian remembered the other person's face firmly. Nangong Chen, who was beside Nangong Chen, coughed lightly when he saw this. "He is still here. Why did this kid steal all the limelight?" Upon seeing this, the four people reacted hurriedly and began to kneel down in greeting. A middle-aged man who can be so close to such a gorgeous and stunning beauty, and who is also wearing a dragon robe and exuding an unconcealable dragon aura. Do they need to wonder who he is? Nangong Chen then smiled and said, "No need to formalize. Since you're friends with this brat, then continue chatting." After hearing this, several people breathed a sigh of relief and wiped the cold sweat from their foreheads. An emperor is too terrifying for them. Not to mention that the other party is the emperor of the famous Tianyuan divine dynasty. "Tell me, what do you want to see me about? And who are these two?" Nangong Chen said lightly, glancing at the grandfather and grandson. At the same time, he was also a little curious. "Your Excellency, we are from the Monghuang Wuling clan. My name is Lan Mo, and this is my granddaughter Lan Xian. We have something to ask you." Lan Mo said sincerely, his tone full of respect. Lan Xian on the side nodded, and looked at Nangong Chen with her beautiful eyes very nervously. "The Wild Spirit Tribe?" Nangong Chen's eyes flickered. Su Li seemed to have mentioned to him that some kind of wilderness competition would be held soon. He naturally knew that Monghuang was located in the extreme west, but he never expected that the other party would want to find him in this place tens of thousands of miles away. Nangong Chen, who was standing aside, nodded thoughtfully. "What is it?" There was no trace of emotion on Nangong Chen's face. "My Lord Crown Prince, could you please participate in the wilderness competition on behalf of our Wuling clan?" Lan Mo spoke tremblingly, then gritted his teeth. "We, the Wuling clan, are willing to give you a generous reward. It will definitely be useful to you. The Great Wilderness Competition." After hearing this, Nangong Chen did not agree directly. His eyes were dim as he murmured these words. He heard from Su Li that the Monghuang competition was nothing more than the Monghuang family tempting quasi-saints from outside with the heart-refining pool. But what did this have to do with him? a mere god king. But what made him curious was that the other party was so sure that the reward he offered would be useful to him. Chapter 384, A Breakthrough Opportunity. You, the Wuling clan, are truly audacious to ask our divine dynasty crown prince to serve as your external aid. Nangong Chen on the side spoke, his tone calm, as if a huge storm was about to hit. At the same time, his eyes were so deep that it was impossible to tell what he was thinking. As soon as these words were spoken, Nalan Imo broke out in a cold sweat. His breathing became rapid, and the fantasy in his heart was shattered. Damn it, he should have realized long ago that asking such a being as their external aid was completely a fantasy. Why would such a monster like the other party help them? Now look what has happened. I have angered King Tianyuan. It is still a question whether I can get out today. I should not have come here earlier. Then, a bitter smile and regret flashed across Lan Mo's face, and he wanted to kneel down and apologize. Lan Xin on the side clenched her hands. Her beautiful eyes drooped slightly, and her face was full of loss. Sure enough, it was impossible for a small wild family like theirs to invite such an existence. It was simply unrealistic. At this moment, the Qing family brother and sister beside them did not dare to speak, their eyes filled with complicated expressions. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that King Tianyuan must have been angry because of what the other party said. Just when the atmosphere was depressing, Nangong Chen spoke again. Don't be nervous. Tell me, what exactly is this generous reward you're talking about? Nangong Chen seemed to see what they were thinking and smiled. After the words fell, Lan Mo's old pupils lit up instantly, and he quickly reacted. He said with fear and trepidation, reporting to King Tianyuan, other families offer a sacred herb and 1,000 immortal crystals as a reward for inviting quasi-saints. As a token of our sincerity, our Wuling clan will offer 5 times that reward. That's 5 rare and precious holy medicines, plus 5,000 immortal crystals. In addition, if the Crown Prince agrees, we will give the Crown Prince an extra chance to go to the heart-refining pool, in addition to the original one time the first-place winner can go there. As soon as these words were spoken, the pupils of the Qing family siblings shrank slightly, and they turned around in disbelief and looked at the two of them. The look in his eyes seemed to be saying, "So your Menghuang family is so powerful." Of course, the two people on the stage were silent, their eyes flickering, as if they were thinking about something. 5 sacred herbs, plus the 5,000 immortal crystals, seemed pretty good. Nangong Chen thought to himself, feeling extremely excited. Nangong Chen, who was standing by, patted Nangong Chen on the back fiercely after hearing that there were 2 chances to enter the heart-refining pool. He then calmly said, "Go, brat, you must go. The heart-refining pool is extremely important to you. If you take first place, those 2 opportunities to go to the heart-refining pool will be snatched up by countless people in the outside world. The heart-refining pool, isn't this only effective for quasi-sages?" Nangong Chen was a little confused. Of course not. Don't you feel like you've hit a bottleneck recently? Are you still unable to reach that glimmer of opportunity to become a quasi-saint? Nangong Chen continued to transmit his message, his tone seeming to carry a hint of anxiety. Nangong Chen's expression changed slightly after hearing this. What he said seemed to be true. Ever since he touched the limit of the God King that day, his cultivation seemed to have stopped, and he didn't know when he would be able to break through. Chapter 385, Inner Soul Fire, Outer Soul Fire. He could sense that his soul, divine power, and divine image had all reached incomparable fullness, and he was only one step away from becoming a quasi-saint. However, what puzzled him was that he had not yet sensed that opportunity when he woke up. Nangong Chen informed Nangong Chen of his situation. Nangong Chen frowned slightly, and after a while, he transmitted a message. "It seems that your understanding of the cultivation system is still too superficial. No. In other words, your cultivation level has increased too quickly, and you haven't been able to calm down and gain some insights." Nangong Chen was speechless, but just took a deep breath. He naturally knew that he was improving too fast. That day he went directly from the early stage of God King to half-step quasi-saint. To be honest, he didn't have a very deep understanding of the Divine King road. The reason why the Divine King is called the Divine King is that in ancient times, the human race created a cultivation method to survive among the myriad races. When their souls and divine powers reached their limits, they imitated the peak states of the powerful beings of various races and even all things. The core of this cultivation method lies in summoning a powerful projection, matching it with one's own physique, thereby enhancing one's physical potential and greatly increasing one's strength. As for quasi-saints, it is a step forward from virtuality to reality. One needs to ignite the soul of the Dharma image, allowing the projected Dharma image to further solidify. Only with the blessings of the 3 paths can one step into quasi-sainthood. Nangong Chen looked calm, but his heart was already surging with turmoil. So, in other words, practicing the Tao is a process of constantly solidifying the Dharma? That's right. Nangong Chen nodded. Then how do we ignite the soul fire of the Dharma image? Nangong Chen suddenly had an epiphany and asked hurriedly. He knew that as long as he ignited the soul fire and allowed the Dharma image to develop a rough framework, he would be able to become a quasi-saint. Therefore, how to ignite this soul fire is crucial. There are two soul fires in the Dharmakaya. These two fires are also somewhat different. They are divided into inner and outer. One is called the outer soul fire, and the other is called the inner soul fire. External soul fire, as the name suggests, is the soul fire on the outer skin of the Dharmakaya. You only need to ignite it to give the skeletal skin of the Dharmakaya a concrete framework. Of course, as long as you do this, you will be able to advance by leaps and bounds and enter the quasi-saint realm. As for the inner soul fire, it is related to your breakthrough to the sainthood. It is equivalent to adding internal organs to your Dharma image, which is also the symbol of sainthood. At the same time, igniting the outer soul fire is much more difficult than the inner soul fire. So, the quasi-saints and saints who come after the God King are also called the outer fire realm and the inner fire realm. After saying this, Nangong Chen closed his eyes and carefully considered the connection between himself and the Dharma image. Sure enough, in his mind, although the white-robed Dharma image seemed to be extremely powerful, it was just a phantom, with only appearance but no substance. As you continue to go deeper, you will find that on the surface of the Dharma image, that is at the shoulders, there are two faint flames blooming, but they flicker and are extremely unstable, as if there's a strong wind at work. This should be the outer soul fire. Nangong Chen thought to himself, his eyes shining. As for deeper inside the Dharmakaya's body, in the heart, there was also a flickering flame, which was even more unstable than the flames on his shoulders. It was even difficult to detect if he did not observe carefully. Unsurprisingly, this faint flame is the inner soul fire. He could feel that igniting the inner soul fire was much more difficult than igniting the outer soul fire. Just as he was pondering, Nangong Chen spoke again, transmitting the message. As for how to ignite these two fires, it's actually very simple. Soul fire is nothing more than the manifestation of your state of mind. The more distracting thoughts you have, the more obstacles there are to the burning of the soul fire, making it harder to ignite. Conversely, the fewer distracting thoughts you have, the less burden the soul fire has, and it will ignite easily. In other words, as long as your mind is clear and free of distractions, you can become a quasi-sage. I see. Nangong Chen nodded slightly, suddenly realizing.